here live online on Twitch and live here at the Jupiter in Hamburg. Today, my name is Heiko. I'm coordinating the Speakers Corner. Today it's the day of Speakers Corner in English language, and I'm really happy to introduce 8 persons with special different talks. This year, Play will take also again online and on location, as I already told you. If you're in Hamburg, please come to Jupiter, drop by Jupiter, and you can enjoy a great exhibition about our theme. This year it's called Soap Opera. We have games from Hamburg developers. We have really nice games about the topic soap opera, and we have also a little a little part of the exhibition from youth people who organized the Young Play area, and also some workshops just right live in the Makers Corner. Yeah, you're invited to come here live to us. Yeah, live here on stage will be the first speech from Michael Rüth. What role can games play in pro-environmental behavior? So I'm really excited that you are our first guest right now. The stage is yours. Please, Michael.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Heiko. Welcome everyone online and here in Hamburg. I'm very happy to be here, and we will talk about some games on their potential for pro-environmental behavior. And I would like to start with a short video, and I would like to invite you that I wait a second. Yes, that you can all see what I will show, and I guess you will know the game and now try to think about what it has to do with pro-environmental behavior. And let's go.
Finally, back home in beautiful Evergreen. Harbor? What happened to this place? Do they actually like living like this? You go to university for a few years and the whole town falls in love with trash. Okay, that's happening. They may be okay with it, but I know we can do better. I just have to show them how. First step, reduce my eco-footprint. Solar panels, wind turbines, a few more updates, and I'm off the grid. Feels better already. Now the hard part, getting my neighbors to want a cleaner, more sustainable city too. Fortunately, my buddy Knox is a real advocate for the eco-lifestyle. Rude flex, I know, but go with it. He's done some great work pushing neighborhood action plans, like a water shutoff day. He's a little hard on you if you don't participate, though. Sorry, Diane. Knox is campaigning to change this barren lot into a community garden. He's got big dreams of growing sustainable food, like vertical gardens that take less space to grow more, or harvesting insects for a crunchy alternative to meat. But it's not up to him. It's up to the people. And it looks like they voted for...
Cliffhanger. So we will talk about this situation again, but maybe you have all some associations that you say, come on, there are some solutions. Of course, we need other people. We have to raise our voice, so to say. We have to talk about things. There are some solutions which are here in the game, but the thing is, of course, today, what has this to do with what happens in the real world, and also, of course, beforehand in the minds of the people seeing this or playing this. So that's the introduction, and of course I think I don't have to tell you, but I will just show again that it's still a thing, of course, in the most highly rated risks from the World Economic Forum, that we have the issue right here in the next 2 years, that you have to, of course, address these pro-environmental or environmental risks, because otherwise it will come to catastrophes, and we don't want that. And also in 10 years we see it's not getting better. And so we really have to talk about this, and I think you all know this, so maybe the world might look like this in some virtual worlds, and we can play with this world, but in the real world, of course, we have to talk about this more seriously. One way to understand pro-environmental behavior is that we talk about behavior that is about consciously protecting the environment and improving its sustainability. So for the very, very far future, that people will also like the environment as we do or have been doing. And this includes saving resources, of course, preventing environmental issues that we can anticipate and plan for, and for a sustainable lifestyle. There's more, of course, but I have limited time today, so please bear with me that this is some kind of focus. So let's talk about what role games can play. Of course, they can provide a suitable environment for active learning. So it depends on your knowledge and your skills, but you can learn a lot in this environment. But remember, this is The Sims, and the excerpt from the video you have seen, maybe there is not too much in some games, and maybe there's more in some other games, and maybe there will be more in some future games. I hope so. And yeah, this is another point, safe environment, so you can experiment, of course, with solutions, either because the game provides you with solutions and you can just see when I select this one or this track, then I see the results, or you can, of course, also sandbox your own ideas and then see how the environment might react in a more simulator style. And then we can scale maybe these solutions which might emerge in the virtual environments and say, okay, now we discovered that this might be a way that we neglected up to now. No? So this could be some points. And yeah, as we have seen in the video, this was about the Sims, some of the million or billion add-ons we have for the Sims 4 that we can experience pro-environmental behavior. But I would argue that this is more about role models. Okay, this no sound here, I guess, but
great.
It's not. Okay.
We don't have to throw
Thanks.
away everything just because we don't want it anymore. Upcycle it. I love me some homegrown, ultra-organic, fresh farm-to-table fizzy juice. And these hand-dipped artisan candles are selling faster than they burn.
Okay, so just another part of this video. So we have some solutions here, and we see, okay, we have some ideas, and we can do something. We can sell some candles, or we can just do our own stuff. We can upcycle, and so on. So we have some role models here, so to say, right? So we see, okay, people are doing this in the game, and then I can think about, why am I not doing this? Huh? Can I do this? Where are some possibilities for improvement for myself or for my environment, so to say. So, and then in the game we can of course not too explicitly say, you have to do this, you have to do that, here's a perfect guy, here's a bad guy, so to say, this will not work, pretty sure. But we can include these kind of role models and then illustrate some ways toward pro-environmental behavior and some ways which are destroying the environment, so to say. But maybe this is not the most powerful way of doing this. So let's talk about another key mechanism we have in every game, rewards. And again, very important, but a very difficult at the same time thing. We see this here. We have points, badges, items, so to say, so some rewards. Our brain is always happy when it gets rewards, but of course, again here, game design is very crucial, that this is not too superficial, that is not very short, good experience, but that this is prolonging or that is even transferring into the real world. So we have another example. I guess most people also know this game. The screenshot is taken from, maybe not this exact screenshot, it's Anno 1800, but it's an add-on which is including environmental consequences of your decisions in the game. Huh? So now we have here water quality on the left-hand side, and some catastrophe here, and some good or too optimal, so to say, so some overperformance here, for water quality, for soil quality, and for air quality. Huh? So for example, here we have droughts. If we don't care too much about the soil, we just say, we need too many farms, we just maximize our profit and so on, and then the environment will say, no, you will not get any profit for the next 2 years because we will just say, the soil quality is too bad. And so the real game is not like this, but some changes the game designers have made is that you cannot move buildings anymore. You might know this from some games, strategy games and so on, maybe you can move some buildings, but actually in Anno 1800 it's a specific feature and you can only destroy them. You can only in the real world say also, I can destroy the building, I cannot move a building. I mean, you can move buildings, but then it's a very specific case. Then here, when you remove buildings, you don't get back the resources. You only get some part of the money. So there's there's no benefit in destroying buildings, so to say. And also trees, trees are disappearing. So in the original game, trees are just like endless, but as in the real world, trees are disappearing, of course, if you use them and cut them down. The maximum profit, that's the reason, strategy which is original in the game, very successful, does not work anymore because the environment strikes back. Also, monocultures are not working anymore. In the original game, this is working pretty well. And also, maximum profit in this sense of making very many factories and so on is not working because it's leading to air pollution. So this is also not very good. So this might lead to behavior change, but maybe only in the game. So what about the real world again? Just we have a short look that if you don't know Anno 1800 how it looks like.
Something, for example, let's destroy this. You only get money, you don't get resources back.
So he's just showing
and
the thing I just said.
Because of when you stop something, you don't get any impact.
Here you have seen air quality impact, so this is kind of the implementation of the feature. So you might say quite subtle, so it's hard to see, if not to say, but as you see here, it's actually a very important metric because, as I said, the consequence will be catastrophes, and then you will realize that you made something, some errors. Okay. Again, here in the game, there are solutions. As we have seen in the case of The Sims, I can just make my own juice, I can just upcycle, so we can just do all that, and then the environment is fine again. And here we have limited amount of trees, we have bad water quality, we have bad air quality, so just let's build a forester, we get back our trees, just let's build a water purification plant, we have great water quality again, and let's just pause some of the polluting industry. We know in the real world this is working pretty well. We just say the industry just take a break for some months and then we have good air quality again. So how could this then change pro-environmental behavior in the real world? This is again the question. And from psychology we know that behavior is predicted or can be predicted by our intentions, but as you might know, we have New Year's Eve very soon, and then you make your wish list and your goals for the next year and whatsoever, and then we have many intentions, we have many wishes, but what about the reality? But let's stick with this model. The model says, we have some attitudes. What does it mean? We have some positive or negative evaluation of some behavior, so we think something is good or bad, so to say. Secondly, we say there's some subjective norm. As we have seen in the Sims case, there's some community, other people are doing that, so there's kind of a positive or negative social pressure. Other people are doing this already, other people tell me, what about, join us, we will just do this, good for the environment. So this is all about this factor, predicting intention. And the last one is perceived behavior control. If you say, I'm really able to do this, I can do some upcycling, I can do something more in my free time or also in my job life to improve the environmental quality. Last but not least, so to say, why could games not play a role in pro-environmental behavior? For instance, because we just play for 8, 10, 12 hours whatsoever per day or per week, and we say, I've done so many things in the game and it's so good, like the metrics were perfect, points, rewards, and you're so exhausted afterwards and say, I've done so much for the environment, of course. No? This is not that it has to be the case, but it might be some kind of illusion, because in some sense you have done something for the environment, but in the virtual world. So maybe this will not transfer to additional real-world behavior. You have seen some solutions, so you might fall for the impression that you say, so it's quite easy, so why are we not doing this? Maybe you have seen in the Sims case, just do some windmills, like windcrafting on your house. This is not working. It will take years if you get the allowance, but then there's maybe not the material. We all know these issues. And we have a very important effect we also know, the so-called chocolate broccoli effect. So if you make the games very, very good in the sense of pro-environmental behavior, then people will not enjoy them anymore because they will realize, oh, this is about, I have to do something else, I have to change, this takes a lot of energy, and I will just end the game and relieve the pressure, so to say, this game is giving me. Yeah, so what I would like to say, but at least the least thing we can do is consider touch points. So the games I'm talking about, these were just examples, of course, right? So we can talk about indie games, we can talk about small, big games, whatsoever, and we can consider touch points. So where can we find the games? Of course, in the environment, things should happen, so to say. Huh? So location-based games, apps, things that can use augmented reality and so, right? So the technology we have, use it, because when you are in the situation, you realize I can do something, the technology or the game is showing it to me maybe via AR and also maybe rewarding me. There's maybe some competition behind that. No? Details may differ, but at least this is an important touch point. Of course, education. Not only for the younger people, also for the university people and also for lifelong education, so to say, there's always touch points you can integrate this topic or the games which are addressing pro-environmental behavior. Research, of course, there are many games, there will be many games, I hope, talking about and showing this topic, but we also have to find out and track what actually the effects are, to then talk about how we can use their potential the best. Different media, of course, there are not only games, there are movies about games, there are games about movies and so on, so let's just consider these touch points, cross-media, to make this thing more visible. Yeah, job life, of course, right, we can also talk about gamification, but you can call it like as you like. It's just different things that can also work in job life, and also politics, of course. Keep talking, we have to keep talking, we have to keep talking with people from politics, and the politicians each other have to talk to each other, and so on. So these are all touch points. So let's consider the game elements and persuasive mechanisms we know for behavior change. We know from psychology, we know from game design, there's a lot of opportunities, and yeah, promote experimentation of solutions. So I'm also talking, of course, about funding. In Germany, we have this problem of not enough funding for game development and so on. So let's do this and promote the experimentation for game design, but also for the players, of course. And consider or support research. Yes, that would be me also, but also, of course, my colleagues. And I would like to yeah, be part of this process with other people. And let's talk about this, because this is, as I have shown in the beginning, very important and very critical, and very, very soon that we have to solve these challenges. Okay, of course I have just shown 2 games. There are many games. There are games since decades showing this, talking about this, providing spaces for the potentials I've shown to you. And this is more or less the latest one, also very successful, which is great. But yeah, this topic should be at the top, should stay at the top. And of course there are other topics. I will not talk about those ones, but pro-environmental behavior, of course, has to do with mental health, with global crises, and so on and so forth. So I'm not talking about just 2 games, and they should just be about pro-environmental behavior. They should, of course, be about larger topics, and storytelling should not be too flat, so to say, not be too superficial. Yeah, and let's keep making games. Green Game Jam and so on are great initiatives, and yeah, this is just for you to check out these games. And with this I would like to close, and I invite you for some questions, comments and so on, and yeah, let's keep talking. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marco, for your speech. Are there any questions here in Jupiter from the audience? Do you have questions? Okay, I just handle over to Twitch channel. Hi, audience there. Please, if you have some questions, write it now, because we have some seconds of delay. And if you are interested to ask something, Marco, just write it right now. Okay, last chance to point out a question. My final question is all this just written up. How can we contact Marco if someone from the audience or from the Twitch chat, sorry for that, has questions later or like to have some suggestions for games you have already also mentioned. I'm just finding some English words in my brain, so maybe I've got one question left. Maybe you showed us, it's kind of, how do you call this? I have a conflict with the game Terra Nil, because Terra Nil, it's like, you can use it for free if you have a Netflix account. And this is also many times it's a conflict, which game I can play, from which publisher and so on. So maybe for the first steps, you have shown Sims, you have shown Anno, maybe we have always at the Play Festival, we have many pupils from schools, and maybe do you have one or two games you can say, you can just download the app and play a little along? Is there anywhere where you don't have to pay something for it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's always important to have the access, of course, right, to these games. And there are online resources you can check out. Games for sustainability, for instance, or the Green Game Jams. I don't know by heart which ones are available, or you can, of course, contact the developers sometime. And if you use it for educational purposes, then you get specific access. Like this is, this is coming more. And hopefully will be a process that we have more access also for people who want really to work with the games and not only play them. So,
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I hope for the audience on Twitch and for the audience here at Jupiter that you change a little bit your behavior after this speech from Marco. Thank you very much once again. Little applause for him. Thanks. And we make a little construction break in Twitch, and we see you in a few minutes again. Okay, welcome back to the Speakers Corner in Twitch Online and the Jupiter here. As you see behind me, there's the next speaker. His name is Niall Moody. He's from Scotland. He will introduce this person on his own. And the title of the talk is Nomic Games and Playing Well. So the stage is yours, Niall, and have fun for the audience.
Okay. Hello. So my name is Niall Moody. I am an artist and game developer from Scotland, and I'm here to talk about two things: Nomic Games and Bernie de Koven's concept of the well-played game. And hopefully by the end of this talk, I'll have managed to connect those two things in a way that makes sense. So first of all, how many people here are familiar with Nomic Games? Nobody? Cool. That means I get to explain them, which is great. So Nomic, as a game, is basically a game in which, as the quote says, a game in which changing the rules is a move. So Nomic games are all about players actually changing the very rules of the game. The original Nomic was created by this guy here. This is Peter Schubert. He is a philosopher. I think he originally trained as a lawyer. And these days he's mostly active as an advocate for open access research policies. But in the early 80s, his work was primarily focused on the philosophy of law. So I hope you'll bear with me a couple of minutes just to explain that work, because it feeds into what I actually want to talk about. So in the early 80s, Schubert was particularly interested in what he identified as a paradox within modern legal systems. in the sense that legal systems are essentially systems of laws that we have to abide by in our everyday lives, and there are usually consequences if we break those laws. But these legal systems also exist within the world, and the world is constantly changing, which means that we can't really have a legal system that is just forever fixed in stone and unable to be changed, because the world is going to change and those laws are going to start making less and less sense. So pretty much every modern legal system, as well as the regular everyday laws that we have to follow, they also have laws for changing those laws. And that means not just being able to change the everyday laws, but also being able to change the laws that define how we change laws in the first place. And that's the core of the paradox that Super identified. But really, I'm not so interested in the kind of philosophy side of this. So what I'm more interested in is the fact that when he was writing this book, he didn't just write the book. He also created this game called Nomic as a way of exploring these ideas. So I'm not expecting anybody to read all of these, but these are the initial set of rules that Super created for Nomic. I think it's quite obvious to me that this is a game that was created by a lawyer, but some of these rules are kind of traditional game rules, like Rule 208 specifies that the winner is the first player to achieve 100 points. And there are a few other rules that define how you might get points. But actually, most of the rules are about defining how you can change the rules. And to kind of summarize how the game works, basically players, the main thing a player is doing when you play Nomic is proposing changes to the rules. And once you've proposed a rule change, the entire group, all of the players, vote on whether to add that rule change to the actual list. And there are some really interesting things that come out of this. So I guess first I should say I've not actually played the original Nomic. I've only ever played a variation of this. I'm going to come back and talk a wee bit about that in a minute, because I think there's something interesting there too. But when I played this variation of Nomic, something that really interesting happened, and effectively our players, our group, ended up creating these political factions, because we realized that if we want our own rule changes to be passed, we need to kind of gather support for that to happen. And that, in our case, ended up generating these kind of political parties and this kind of politicking and diplomacy going on as people jockeyed to kind of get their rules passed and block their opponent's rules. And there's something really interesting in the sense that none of that stuff was actually written explicitly in the rules themselves. That very much came out of how we were playing with them and how we were interacting with those rules. So that's one thing that I find fascinating about Nomic. Another thing is the fact that after Super published this initial game, it kind of took on a life of its own, especially once email and the internet became more widely available. And one of the kind of fascinating things here is that most of the people who played Nomic and still play Nomic today, they don't play the original version of Nomic. They play their own custom versions, which I think makes sense in the sense that Nomic as a game all about like making your own rules and thinking through the consequences of rules. And it makes sense that people who are interested in that kind of game are probably interested in making their own version of it. They probably have quite strong opinions about what rules they should be playing with. Anyway, I've just got a screenshot of this site here. One of my favorite ways of like losing a number of hours on the internet. It's quite an old site. I don't think it's maintained anymore. There are a number of dead links, but it has this fascinating page called the Dead Games Archive, which is basically an archive of a huge number of games of Nomic that were played over the internet. Because a lot of these games were played by email, it was very easy to archive them. You just archive the emails themselves. And if you're anything like me and you're kind of fascinated by kind of early internet culture, this is a gold mine, because you can click on any one of these links and just kind of scroll through how these games unfolded and get a sense for the personalities of the players. It's kind of fascinating, and there's some really, really neat games in there. But what I want to focus on here is what particularly excites me about Nomic as a game. which isn't so much the kind of philosophy of law origins of it, and it's not so much the kind of political parties that evolved in that game that I played, although I do think that's absolutely fascinating. What is most exciting to me about Nomic is that the core of this game is players creating their own rules and actively changing and modifying the game as they play. Because that's something that we don't see in that many games. Most of the games we play, we are, as players, we are playing according to the rules and the structure that have been laid out for us by the game designer. And even with something like tabletop role-playing, where players have a lot of freedom to define and shape the story of the game, usually they're still playing within a predetermined structure, a predetermined rule set. But Nomic, I feel, offers an alternative to that. And it shows that you can make a game where you give players the power to actually change the rules as they go, and all sorts of interesting things can come out of that. But, okay, so that was the first half of this talk. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing is Barney de Koven's concept of the well-played game. So I'm going to ask again, how many people here are familiar with Barney de Koven's work? See one hand? Okay. So if you're not familiar with de Koven, de Koven was a game designer, and he often described himself as a theorist of fun. And he wrote this very influential book called The Well-Played Game, A Player's Philosophy. So what de Koven was interested in when he wrote this book was, what do we actually mean when we say a game was well played? What does that actually mean? Because there are all sorts of ways that we can play games together and feel slightly dissatisfied, in the sense that we maybe come away and it just didn't quite work the way we were expecting, and ultimately we wouldn't necessarily call that a well-played game. And there are also like situations where I imagine all of us have had this experience at some time, where we're playing a game with one group of players who are like very experienced and very like highly skilled. They're playing right at the top of their game, but they're playing with another group of players who are a lot less experienced, who are maybe new to the game. They're still kind of figuring it out. And ultimately, games like that tend to be kind of dissatisfying, because the inexperienced players are probably going to be getting trampled by the very experienced players. But at the same time, even though the experienced players are probably right at the top of their game, they're doing amazing in terms of like what the game is asking them, they're probably not particularly satisfied, because ultimately they're probably feeling like there's no challenge for them. So de Koven kind of looked at that and he said, well, if we have these players who are really good at what they do, playing at a very high level, and yet we're still ending up with a game that's really quite dissatisfying for everyone involved, we can't really call that a well-played game. So if it's not a well-played game when you have like a high skill level of the players involved, what is a well-played game? So I'm going to attempt to kind of summarize de Koven's kind of answer and his kind of solutions to how we might actually create a well-played game. But this is going to be a very short summary, so I do recommend, if you're interested in any of this, do check out this book. It's very good. So I think core to de Koven's kind of answer to that is focus on the players. The players are what matters. And if we want to play well together, we have to pay attention to each other. We have to be aware if someone is maybe pulling away, if they're maybe not feeling the game quite so much. And we have to be attentive and responsive to that. And I'm going to come back and hopefully explain how we might do that. The second thing, which felt quite revolutionary to me when I first read it, is with a lot of the games we play, we're often not really allowed to stop playing when we want to play them, when we want to stop playing them. Most games we play, especially with other people, they have kind of a set kind of ending condition that we're kind of expected to play through till that point. But de Koven argues that if you have to play through to the end of a game, and you're compelled to do that, then you're not really free to play. If you're not free to stop playing, then you're not really free to play at your fullest. Because to play at your fullest, you kind of need to be in the right kind of mind state. And if you're kind of there because you have to be there, you're probably not in that kind of right place to like really kind of fully be yourself and be your best kind of playing self. So I found that kind of I found that like really kind of revolutionary to me when I first encountered it. But it's also something that we see a lot in kind of modern tabletop role-playing games, where it's often called the open door policy. And the open door policy states that players are free to step away from the table at any point for any reason, and they don't have to explain themselves. Because again, if you're wanting your players to like fully inhabit their characters and play at their fullest, they kind of need to be free to stop playing whenever they need to. And then the last thing, and this is where I attempt to link Barney de Koven's work back to Nomic, is in order to do all of this, in order to set up a situation where we can really play well together, de Koven would argue that we have to view the players as the most important thing. The players are more important than the game. And that means that if the game is not working for the players, then really you need to change the game in order to, again, like kind of build this play community and make sure we're all kind of playing well together. We're playing at our fullest together. So this is what is so exciting to me about both Nomic, the game, and de Koven's work. So de Koven gives us a way of like looking at games and looking at play where we are prioritizing the players and paying attention to them and what they need, and ultimately building what de Koven would call a play community. But on top of that, Nomic offers an example of how we might create a game or a framework for a game where it's just natural for us to change the game and to continually change the game. And it demonstrates that we can do that and it can work. And the game won't just fall apart once you give players that kind of that power, that ability to change things. Nomic is an excellent example, I think, of a game that does something different to most of the games we play and works really well. So I'm finishing slightly early, but I'm going to leave you with this quote from a book on knitting by Anna Zellberg, because I think this kind of summarizes where I'm going with all of this. Following directions socializes us, making our own sets us free.
I mean, Twitch.
Does anyone have any questions?
That's also my question. Are there any questions? Yeah, okay. First question here in the first row.
Thank you very much. I think this is maybe a comment question, but I liked your open door policy idea, or that you referred to it, because it also connects to the digital environments where you say, do I have to make a playthrough? Do I have to see each level, each character? Do I have to read each dialogue? Or, all this, like in the MMORPGs, like this, I have to collect this and that, but I really want to be the level whatever guy, and I want to have the power, I want to see the cool things in the game, and so on. And I think this is very important and current topic. So maybe this is now the question: how do you see this maybe also in your work or experiences, that you say, where are already these open door policies in maybe other contexts?
Yes, so like I said, I think the main place we see these is in tabletop role-playing games, where I think it's become quite an important topic. I think one of the things that really interests me about tabletop role-playing games is that because they're games where players can bring almost anything to the table, there's obviously like a lot of possibility for players to bring elements that are maybe problematic for some other players. So the folk who are working in that space have spent quite a lot of time like thinking through like safety tools, ways of like looking after their players, of which like the open door policy is one of them. And there are also like other other things like the X card as a way of like editing out elements if they're going to cause problems. So yeah, to answer your question, I think I'm most familiar with it from like tabletop role-playing games. In terms of like digital games, I'm less certain. I think certainly like when you're talking about like competitive online games, like I don't think the only option if you're kind of having a bad time playing like a MOBA is to like rage quit, which is just kind of bad all round. I don't know if I have a good solution to that particular problem, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much for your talk. Very interesting, and I love to see where your game comes from. That I see some inspiration there. And going into this quote that you choose to end, I mean, I also like games and plays because of the freedom that we have within this playscape. But it is also true that freedom can be a little bit scary sometimes. So, like, for that reason, some games, like when have very clear rules, and for example, Uno, it's a super famous game partly because you don't have a lot of freedom. No? It's a very limited freedom that we have when we're playing Uno. And it's so, I think that's partly why it's so popular. But at the same time, like from, let's say, more theoretical perspective or analytical, it's not a very good game. No? It's like too simple. So, like, I would like if you could share some of your insights, like through this research, like how to balance this freedom that the players have, like on these games, with certain structure that allows to give some guidance and protect the players not to be completely free, but still free enough to enjoy their journey?
So that's a really good question. I think the way I've dealt with this is to act in a kind of facilitation role. I think having someone there to kind of not just like walk you through the process of playing one of these games, but also to kind of reassure you that there are no like real kind of bad moves. I think when you're creating your own rules, like the important thing is just to make rules and then see what happens and then react to that. I think that's the best way to approach this kind of thing. So in terms of like what I've done for these kind of things is most of the time I've run this game, I've been the one running it. I've been there with the players, talking them through it. I also give them like examples, which I think is the other way of like easing people in, giving them examples of how you might play, what kind of rules you might add to the game. But you're right, it is scary, especially like if you're starting from a game like my own, making up as we go along. You're often starting from a blank page, and that can be intimidating. I don't have like an absolute like solid like completely workable answer, but like for me it's about like facilitation and giving people examples and hopefully easing them in that way.
Okay, thank you for your speech. I don't really have a question, just a thought, because you brought up Uno, because I worked with students just the last week with Uno, and we played with a new set. So for one, the interesting part was I just asked them to write down the rules that they play at home, and then we found out that all 4 of them had different rule sets. So we first had to find out what's our common rule set. So I think even Uno has different rules because it's played differently everywhere. And then the second part was that I was really interested to find out that in this new version of Uno that I got, like a new pack, they also included individual cards. So you can fill in your own cards, you can write down with a pencil your own rules, so you can really create a new game. You can, of course, I mean, there are like 4 individual cards, but you can create your own individual cards, and then really that spices up the games and sometimes completely changes the game because there are other rules then to follow.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions here from the audience? Okay, thanks. In the Twitch channel, there weren't any questions. So there were some persons coming to the audience a little bit late, and they mumbled, "Oh, who's that guy? It's so interesting, his talk and his speech." So my last question, do you have email or something we can stay in touch for the audience?
I forgot to add that to my slides, but if I open up Notepad, I'll give you my website. That's probably the way to do it.
Okay, that's a nice idea.
I'll make the font bigger before before I finish.
Okay. So it's niallmoody.com, right?
Right. Let's just make this big.
Yeah, that's a nice
Everyone
move.
can see that?
Thank you very much, Neil. It was a really interesting and inspiring talk. Applause for you. Okay, dear fellows, thank you again to Ott and Nina on the Twitch channel where we are hosted this year again. And we have a little break just to reconstruct the stage for the next talk with Christina Kutscher. We see in a few seconds. Okay, we are back again. So, nice welcome to all the new audience on Twitch and the new audience here at the Play Stage Jupiter. Yeah, back again with Christina Kutscher, and you brought a talk, a speech, Beyond the Scary, Gothic Games. Do I have to be scary? Scared, afraid of something?
Scary, yes. Scared, no.
Okay, so, so it's your stage. Enjoy the talk, and we see us later with the questions.
Thank you. Welcome to Beyond the Scary Gothic Games. My name is Christina, and when I say Gothic games, I mean something like this, not this. So I don't want to talk about games that have Gothic in their title, but maybe we should clarify what Gothic actually is, what makes a game Gothic, what are iterations of Gothic in games, what does that term even mean? And the answer is it depends, and a few associations come to mind, and one is Gothic as an architectural style. I just move over here. So, one very common example, of course, is Bloodborne, and when you look past the action here, you can see a few elements that are commonly associated with Gothic architecture, like pinnacles, which are these ornaments here on spires, or you have plate tracery, which is this round window in the back. And something you cannot see at all right now are windows like these, which are heavily ornamented windows that have this arch, which is usually not that round in Gothic architecture. And Bloodborne's visual influences are a mixture of 19th century horror literature from writers like Bram Stoker and H.P. Lovecraft and Gothic revival architecture. Bram Stoker, of course, well known for being the author of Dracula, and H.P. Lovecraft, well known for his contributions to the subgenre of cosmic horror and for being a racist, and of course he's a 20th century author. Another example is this from Lies of P. This is a cathedral, a stereotypical building for Gothic in games. Again, we have this plate tracery right here, this round window. We have pinnacles, which are like little towers on top of little towers. These ornaments right there. And you can see these ornamented windows again. Another thing that is commonly associated with Gothic is everything supernatural when you think of story elements. So think of castles as a setting. One of the earliest Gothic novels was Castle of Otranto. Think of vampires and Dracula, ghosts. But it's important to keep in mind that there are different definitions of Gothic across centuries, across the globe, and I'm generalizing a bit. When you think of The Raven, which is maybe the best known poem by Edgar Allan Poe, this is American Gothic. Bram Stoker, of course, Irish or British Gothic. Even within American Gothic, we have different subgenres like Southern Gothic and so on. But something they all have in common is this, well, spooky stuff. which you can see in games as well. I don't know if you can see, but you have a raven in the left-hand corner over there. This is a screenshot from Darkest Dungeon. However, games that are considered Gothic are more than that. They are more than the spooky stuff you see in them. Think of Blasphemous. You have themes like despair, liminality, morality, and so on and so forth. And this is because the Gothic goes beyond elaborating and redeploying a specific set of identifiable cliches, such as ghosts, monsters, castles, and so on and so forth, as it gives shape to culturally specific anxieties and taboo desires. Or in short, Gothic does not equal aesthetics, not exclusively anyway. Think of Inscription. Yes, it is spooky, but what else did you feel? What else did you think when you played this game? And I agree with this. The Gothic is a discursive site. It's an anchor for discourse. It's much more than a collection of spooky stuff and elaborate ornaments on buildings. And this brings us to our third pillar, which is themes. Power and transgression, for instance. And this can mean a few things. It can mean power being abused. It can mean challenging the order that has been put in place by those in power. Many Gothic stories portray a woman being abused, indicating severe gender inequality. It's about conveying a sense of helplessness, and it's about discovering the darker sides. There are a lot more air quotes coming, by the way. It's about fantasies of fear and power, about being a complex human being, because historically, this genre comes after Romanticism and Enlightenment, at least in British and American literature, so all these concepts play into this. And games can display these elements in different ways. So one example is Dishonored, and I've talked about Dishonored the last time I was here. This is kind of turning into a series, but I try to make it as brief as possible. The setting is as follows. There's a war going on, there's a plague, the Empress has been assassinated, and the Lord Regent seized power. At the same time, there are gang members competing against the police, trying to maintain power in their little districts. There's a group of loyalists who are loyal to the late Empress and her daughter Emily, who has been captured. But in the end, those loyalists betray us, they betray each other, and generally the city is decaying. There's tyranny, there's being falsely accused of crime, citizens are robbed of their freedom, some are sick without a remedy being available. And it is inspired by late Victorian London, which some contemporaries described as decaying, especially towards the fin de siècle. And this Victorian vibe is often associated with Gothic in games. We play as Corvo, former bodyguard of the Empress. Now he's a suspect in her murder. And he's framed as different. He does not act to benefit himself. He wants to protect the Empress's daughter Emily. He wants to re-establish some kind of societal order. And generally, he wants to do what's right, whatever that might mean. And he's portrayed as different from anybody else in this game, in the story world, in order for you, the player, to like him. And I think this makes him a pick-me hero. This might be true for any video game hero, but I think it's particularly absurd in this case, because he is supposedly morally superior, but he can still be a murderer if you want him to be one. So you can subvert his status as different and put him in a somewhat gray area, which is a very Gothic thing to do. Let me give you a couple of examples. The game has a choose-your-own playstyle. So each chapter there's a target you're supposed to eliminate. In chapter 2, there's Campbell. Now you can make it look like an accident and poison him, and you can always choose the lethal option, which is straight up kill them with your sword or crossbow. But there's also always a non-lethal option, which doesn't really add to your karma. In this case, you can burn his face. You can literally scar his face and mark him as an outcast. In chapter 5, your target is Lady Boyle. Again, you can just straight up kill her. Or the non-lethal option is to lure her into her own cellar, knock her unconscious, and then let a secret admirer kidnap her. And the game lets you explore all these options, all these various outcomes. It lets you explore a taboo, murder, and it poses the question, does killing bad people make you a good person? You have already transgressed social norms in this game. You apply your will to the city, to its lords and ladies. You can do this with your weapons, but also with your supernatural powers, which might be considered a transgression themselves because they are considered otherworldly, haunted, forbidden. And there is spooky stuff in this game. There are witches. There's the outsider, basically the enabler of transgressions. He's the one who provides you with supernatural powers like teleporting, possessing rats, and so on. And I think it's this combination of themes, of references, of the setting. This is what makes Dishonored a Gothic game. Oh, plus, there's literally post-Telltale Heart in this game. Another example is Bloodborne again. And Gothic tales often blur the line between being awake and sleeping, dreams and nightmares, life and death, reality and some kind of other world. And in Bloodborne, you are in a nightmare, literally in a nightmare, to rid Yharnam, the city where this game takes place, to rid the city of its monsters. You are shackled to this dream, forced to be resurrected in it over and over again, and even the citizens are decaying. You can see, maybe you can't see actually. On the right-hand side, this is Father Gascoigne, one of the early bosses, and he turns into a werewolf mid-fight, so again, spooky stuff is there. But the reason for all of this is veiled. Was it the desire to become more that eventually led to the city's downfall? Was it the desire for constant expansion, to be more, bigger, better? We don't really know, and Gothic is not really the genre to give answers. Another nightmare, but for another reason, is something we can see in Silent Hill 2. So this is James Sunderland. He receives a letter from his late wife, Mary. She died 10 years ago, but still she writes that she is in Silent Hill, so James goes to the town of Silent Hill to find her. And when he arrives, he encounters monsters that symbolize different stages of Mary's death. They are manifestations of his guilt. The most popular one, of course, Pyramid Head. This is just a generic one because in the background you can kind of guess that they're supposed to be fog. Of course, this is because of the technical limitations of the PlayStation 1, but the fog also serves a purpose for the story and the gameplay. So you're wandering through this town, there's fog everywhere, and it symbolizes how James represses the memory of his wife's death, or rather the circumstances of her death. And maybe you are just like he is, confused, it's kind of foggy, you're tired, and we meet a few characters that add to this impression, that people are not themselves, they're changing, something feels wrong. There's an aura of uncertainty, it's a very uncanny town, and things are not what they seem to be, which is often the case in Gothic tales. Another very important element of Gothic literature is an unreliable narrator, and James turns out to be one. His mind is transgressing, and his mind is conceiving this town of Silent Hill, putting him in a not dream, yet not reality kind of state, and it tries to cope with the trauma. The trauma being that his wife was incredibly sick. He was sick of her being sick, so he killed her. So in the end, James exerted power over his helpless wife, which again is a very Gothic-y thing to do of Silent Hill 2. Now you might wonder, why? Why investigate Gothic in games? And I think these topics, to have them in games, also means to enable players to engage with them. So Gothic is a means to explore decay, despair, fears, taboos, desires, all of those things I just talked about. But games can make them more tangible. Games can make them playable. And I think this is a benefit video games as a medium have, but it's also where great difficulty for video games lies, because the gameplay has to make sense if you want to make a point. You cannot have a collection of cutscenes on the one hand and then a bunch of gameplay on the other hand. There has to be a synergy. It has to work together if you want to make a point. If your point is that it doesn't fit, that's a whole other story. And I think these 3 games achieve this to some extent. In Silent Hill, like I said, there's fog, there's uncertainty, there are arbitrary seeming puzzles. You are as clueless as he is possibly, and you both work your way through his trauma and the town. In Bloodborne, there's killing to no end. Monsters respawn once you leave and re-enter the area, so the nightmare never ends. And in Dishonored, well, Corvo now lives in the shadow. He's no longer part of the society, and I think the stealth gameplay mimics or mirrors that really well. I think making Dishonored a stealth game was the only logical decision that could be made. Now again, why? Why do I do this? Well, I like to look at games from yet another perspective, and combining my knowledge about literature with my knowledge about video games allows me to do that, and it allows me to access games in a different way in order to find more meaning. I don't know if it's more or just different meaning. And I like to analyze movements, genres, modes, and styles in order to discover something about the people who play and develop, and why they receive and develop a game the way they do, and what that tells us about us. Or in short, to learn why the things are the way they are, and how this might make a change, or even shorter, because of humanities. This is it. You can find me here on almost any social media platform, and I also have a newsletter on Steady, which is in German though. Thanks.
So here's a little scared voice from the off. I come to the stage. Thank you very much for this. Are there any questions for Christina? Here in the front row, please.
All the examples you named were relatively recent games, from Bloodborne to Dishonored to Lies of P. Why do you think this specific style seems to be so popular in games nowadays? Because I don't feel like it is in movies, for example.
This is a very subjective opinion. I just think it's an easy way to create horror in games, because you have these elements that people automatically can translate into feelings. You know, when you see something like this, which is a screenshot from Bloodborne, I think, that there is supposed to be a history, that there's supposed to be something more going on. I think that's it. Films have other ways to create atmosphere and horror.
Are there any other questions right now? Are there some questions in the Twitch chat?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much again. Big applause for you for your interesting talk. And now time is up, so we make a little break and then we reconstruct the stage for the next talk. It will be with Diego Alatorre, Playful Didactics. Wow, I need a break too. Okay, see you soon. Okay, herzlich willkommen zurück. Welcome back to the Speakers Corner on Saturday, the 4th of November. Thanks to Nina that she is our host for the Twitch live streaming. Yeah. And yeah, we're back with Diego Alatorre, and the topic is Playful Didactics. The stage is yours, Diego.
Thank you, Heiko. Thank you to the Play Festival to receive me. It's an honor for me to be here in person, because last year I was here online, so finally I made it to Hamburg, so Yeah, thank you very much for you that are here and for you that are there. The presentation that I'm going to share with you has to do with the reflections that I had, particularly over the last 2 years during my doctoral studies at Coimbra University in Portugal. And, but before getting into that, I will do a little introduction that would take us to where we are now. So I grew up in Jalapa, Veracruz, in the east of Mexico. And since I was a child, like play was for me a way of interacting with the environment and with my family. So in this picture you can see my brother Dario. And also it was embedded within the education that I had, particularly in primary school. So like reflecting on this backwards, I've been thinking, when did school stop being playful? Because probably you might also agree that in primary school, it is still like education is embedded, or play is still embedded in the education, but something happens during secondary school that we lose that. And, but in my case, I had the privilege to continue playing during my bachelor studies. And you can see here one of the first games that I designed in collaboration to friends. So this was a game for scaling, or like a high, how do you say it? Yeah, like a climbing, yeah, thank you. And in like mirroring the movements of your colleague in front of this structure. And then I had the opportunity to move to the Netherlands, where I did my bachelor studies at the Technical University of Delft. And there I continued this journey of game design by, and this was one of the projects that we designed there, also in a team, to promote game or children to engage with their environment through playful interactions. And it was during my stay in the Netherlands that I went on this adventure to Central St. Martins in the UK, where I also learned that design was not only focused on the objects, but could also take on the much more complex issues, like, for example, crime. And it was because of this that I decided to go back to Mexico and start teaching at the university, thinking on education as a system, therefore able to be designed or redesigned. And these are some of the examples of the games that I designed, or that my students designed in collaboration, most of the time with other entities outside the university. So here, for example, it's a game to promote the right to the street that was developed in collaboration with the governmental office in Mexico City. And this was in collaboration with high school, where we were trying to promote cyclist lifestyle by recovering abandoned bicycles, refurbishing them, and it was the same high school students who were teaching the primary school students to ride a bike. So it was quite interesting to see how these dynamics replicate. So it was my university students teaching high school students to repair bikes, and high school students teaching primary school students, primary students to ride bikes. And also using, I've been using games also to engage with adults. So not only with children, but also the games as a way to lower down these psychosocial barriers that we tend to have as adults, and games as a way to overcome this. This is an example of playing with the designers and artisans in Oaxaca, in the south of Mexico, during the residency. And also with the students, like not trying to teach students so that they can design their own games as a way to tackle complex issues. Like in the Taller Interuniversitario de Diseño, that it's a project that where teachers and students from 5 different schools in Mexico City, we came together to work on problems that within the scale of Mexico City. And this has allowed me also to share my experience in other universities, as for example in Chihuahua, in the north of Mexico, in museums like this Futuroscopio that is exposed over there. And if you want to know more about this work, I can talk more about it later. So it's a game to promote future thinking. So trying to step out from the commercial scenarios that are common in mainstream media that all tend to be catastrophic, and try to build new imaginaries from their own expectations, feelings, and desires of the players. So it was like this when I started my PhD a couple of years ago in Portugal. And through that, I've been experimenting with these ideas in different cases. And the last one was in Cologne, in the International School of Design. And well, basically what I've been discovered, and it's not particularly new, let's say, I'm trying to came up with like make a little bit of order in all this literature that exists regarding game design. So, but by understanding design as a way that it's as a transdisciplinary bridge that allows to creatives to take and modify the reality, and trying also to lose these last names that we tend to attach to design. So it's not about graphic design or architectural design or urban design, but more about trying to find what it's common to all of these different disciplines, and how can we take an element from different techniques and try to focus more on the modes of communication. So what do we want to say, and based on the message that we want to convey, what are the tools that we have in order to make tangible those ideas, and so that we are able to share them. Because, and that's what I like about Play, that it's not fun to talk about them. So to explain a game, you have to play it. And I think this is fantastic from the Play Festival, because like during this academical journey, I've attended a couple of conferences where a lot of academics talk about games, and I'm a little bit tired of that. So I think in order to understand games, we have to play them, and that is a very particular phenomena that happens with this medium. So for me, there is a lot of relation between game and design in terms that it is about transforming reality. And of course, game can happen in a more abstract level, in which it's through imagination that we start shifting the reality. But it's only in the moment that we start communicating these ideas that we can have a wider impact. Because of course, we are, as creatives, we're free to think. We have the privilege to step out of reality and imagine potential different, like things that does not exist in this world. But I think part of our responsibility as designers is to transform those ideas and make them tangible, so that other people can engage with these alternative situations that we can think of. And so this takes me to this dynamic relationship that exists between games and play. And it is through design and being coherent with this playful attitude that I've been looking into games as the evidence of this playful process that from a didactic perspective, or let's say from an educational perspective, it's also an opportunity to engage with the younger communities or with other communities, because I've been also teaching teachers so that they can design their own games to engage with their students through playful interactions. And it's the games which are, let's say, carry on the message, so that eventually we can step out and the dynamics continue to be played without us necessarily being there. So by looking at this continuity that I referred on the previous slide, in which I think on design as this continuous attitude towards transforming the world through different media and modes of communication, I've also looking into games from a wider perspective, trying to step out of this hegemony of digital games, which kind of govern today studies on games, but more as a landscape that it's very rich and that allow us to engage into playful attitudes in different levels of abstraction, in different scales of complexity, and so trying to also to not limit the span of our creativity to one simple media, but thinking of games also as a possibility to play with the formats and to break standard formats by engaging in more playful attitudes. And I think the concept attitude, it's something that will come out later, because for me that is key to understand the power of games. So in order to facilitate the understanding of games, and so that I can also share this with more people, I've come to get closer to this MDA framework that was published more than 10 years ago. But I think it's very interesting because it's very simple, and simplicity, as we were discussing before with the game of Uno, it's something that is valuable. I mean, maybe it's not the best game, but it is so simple that it is very played, and so simple that it has already, can be easily transformed. So what I like about this methodology is that it's very simple, and by understanding games from these three different elements, we are able also to make things even more complicated. But as a starting point to start discussing, I think it's amazing what the work of these guys, particularly from the point of view of aesthetics, which it's a completely different perspective from what particularly I, but probably you also learned about aesthetics from being this passive exercise that we do only by observing a piece of art and getting moved by the beauty of the Mona Lisa, for example, only by passively looking at it, towards a more experiential aesthetic that requires actionable and interaction with the game. So in order to be moved by a game, we have to play it. So these require a different ways of approaching this media that is completely interactive. But what I don't like about this particular setup is that it's thought from the video game studies, which is not necessarily translate easily to the tangible interfaces that I'm working with. So what I've been, how I reinterpret this, and this is also a provocation for you, because I don't know if this makes sense to other designers, is to think about the mechanics as the game pieces. So the elements that we play with, and the dynamics, the constraints, the rules, how we play with these elements. And this can be explained also following Kolb's cycle of experiential learning that allow us to think and to compare the previous diagram that I showed with the game and the games as part of one process of that allow us to understand also games and play as part of the social process of experimentation, but also with different emphasis on the different elements that allow this process to be more easy to be instrumented within social practice. And finally, this is, let's say, the little hint of the process that I'm researching and the methodology that I've been using with my students so that they learn to design games, and with a high emphasis also in testing. That it was also what I discussed a little bit with Niels in his presentation, and when, as a cue to make this a little bit more easy, I think it's not that important what the game is about, it's like that you play it, so that you test it. So whatever you do, you have to test it, and I think this is also very important, particularly for media studies, because the focus is not in the media anymore. It's on the response that we have to the media. And so designing things just for collecting things, it's completely useless to me. So for me, it's about engaging people in experimenting through the media of their desire, and not being satisfied only with the media or only with the creation, the things that they do, but on the feedback that they get by putting these things out in the world and looking at these things through the eyes of other people. And I think this is very powerful, because that is, if this is not play in itself, it's at least one step towards that, because it requires interaction. And again, so from this system perspective, what I love about the emphasis on the aesthetics of play is that these allow us to think of games as simple artifacts, and we can think of, for example, chess and define chess only in terms of the elements of the game and the rules of the game. But what is more important for me is the emotions and the attitude that are created when we play. And these emergent properties of games have to do with the emotions and the attitude that we have while playing. And I think this is the most important thing, and also the most difficult thing to shift within the school, because it's not about making the exams look more playful. It's about shifting the emotions by which we evaluate or engage with our students. And I think that's shift completely the conventional education from the position in which I am the teacher and I push knowledge into the brain of my students to a completely different attitude that is not easy to achieve, but I think it's also in the moment that we are able to engage with that, it also lowers down the responsibility of the teachers in terms of being completely in control of the situation to being part of more like a companion that takes us to discover the world together. And I think if we manage to have this, it's also the possibility for teachers to refresh their practice and to keep our practice much more engaging in terms that we continue to learn as well. So that was it. I am a little bit behind the time, so we have some time for questions. And yeah, I would love to hear what you think about it, or if there is something else that you want me to clarify, please bring it on.
Thank you very much, Diego. Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hello? Hi. So I teach game design students, and one of the things I see fairly frequently, and I get quite frustrated about, is students spending a long time making a game but not playing it. And you're talking about the importance of playing a thing to react to that. So I'm just curious, have you experienced that same kind of situation where you're trying to get your students to actually play the thing as they're making it and it's just not happening? Or do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, well, I'm just starting the experimental phase of my PhD. So for the last years, I've been mostly working theoretically. But last week in Cologne, I had this experience with a couple of students that they were trying to convince me of their game. And I was like, I don't want to hear about you talking about it. Because it came after we played it, and we were giving feedback to the designers. So I feel this, it put me in this position, and they were trying to justify the decision that they took based on what they had thought before. And I told them, it's not your time to discuss. I mean, we played your game, so this is very valuable that you have a group of people engaging with your unfinished prototype. So I think from this perspective, we have to value and we have to create these spaces to allow people to experiment. And but what I was saying is it's not, you had the time of your argumentation was while we were playing, and it's not you that have to argument, it's your game that is talking through you. So that's how I've been trying to tackle this is, and from this, from a design perspective, if you buy a blender and you try to make yourself a smoothie and it's not working, I mean, I don't care if the designer comes and explain me how to use the blender. You had the time, I bought the blender from you, so the blender should do the work. I don't want to hear it from you. So it's I think this is the design perspective of eventually being able to erase myself from the picture so that the game has acquire all the agency of not like explain it itself, and it's not easy, of course, but at least that's the, let's say, the provocation that I was giving to them is like, you don't justify what you did, you just listen and take that back to your house and think about it, but you cannot argument further. No? Like, it's about your game that has to talk through you. But it was not easy, and one student got a little bit frustrated because, I don't know, it's in general, but in this school they are very used to argumentation. No? But I think also the possibility to translate arguments from a linear based perspective that it's like speech to a different mode of communication that requires graphical and visual thinking, because most games they come with visual instructions, they come with textual instructions, so it's very complex, the function of a game, so that if you start talking to me and argumenting with a German brain, it's very, the arguments they do, every word is very specific, it becomes a super long explanation. I just want translate that into an actionable interface that it's much more simple to understand.
Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Okay, I have a question now about the process of iteration. So you played with your group one version and then you go to the second version. How does it work there? Who takes the decision what to keep, what to leave? Then it's another stage of playing, but at a certain point there are some roles, or how it works for you, at least in the group you worked with.
I mean, the roles were basically two, the designers and the players. So the designer designs and let's say, before actually engaging into play, because they were I think 8 projects, 12 students. So we presented first all the games, and then it was about the students to choose which games they want to play first. So, and then also taking into account that we cannot or we should never push, because this is a very interesting question also. As a teachers, we have the power to engage the students into play, even if they don't want to, because they have to listen to the teacher. So in order to not make use of this power that we have, I think games have to call them. And so let's say they present their game and they play whatever they want to play. And then the player has to explain, the designer has to explain the game, the players play it, and then give feedback. And yeah. I hope I answer.
Yeah, once again, thank you very much. Unfortunately, time is up right now. But I'd like to invite the audience, the fellows from the Twitch channel again, come to the exhibition, because you talked about mostly games have visual interfaces. We have also a game here with no visual interfaces. It's quite interesting. You also brought a board game. There are also non-digital games here in the exhibition, and you are lovely invited to play the games here. So, okay, we make a little break again, because the next talk will be through Discord to the Twitch channel. Thank you, Diego. Applause for you. And we'll see you later again with the other game devs. So, yeah, enjoy your time here at Jupiter.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome back to the Speakers Corner here at Jupiter in Hamburg at the stage. And herzlich willkommen zurück. The next talk will be held in German, so I will switch over to Deutsch. Also, der nächste Beitrag wird jetzt in Deutsch gehalten. Wir haben einen Gast, und zwar ist das die Nele Luckmann vom SAE-Institut. Sie wird sich gleich selber vorstellen. Nele hat einen Beitrag mitgebracht, Visual Storytelling und Scene Composition, Umgebungserzählung und Mikrogeschichten aus Game Art Perspektive. Liebe Nele, die Bühne gehört dir. Ich wünsche uns allen viel Spaß mit deinem Talk.
Super, danke schön, Heiko. Ja, eben wurde schon gesagt, mein Name ist Nele Luckmann. Ich bin die Fachbereichsleiterin für Game Art und 3D-Animation am SR-Institut Campus Hamburg. Und ja, ich habe einen schwierigen Titel für euch vorbereitet. Das muss aber gar nicht stören. Von daher, lasst uns gerne mal schauen, welche Bildschirmpräsentation ich für euch bereithalte. Gut, ich hoffe, ihr könnt das schon sehen und es wurde umgeschaltet. Jetzt müsste es sichtbar sein. Großartig. Ja, Visual Storytelling und Scene Composition, Umgebungserzählung und Mikrogeschichten aus Game Art Perspektive. Ein langer Titel. Ich wollte euch einfach nicht zu viel versprechen, aber auch nicht zu wenig. Von daher, aufgrund der Kürze der Zeit, lasst uns einfach mal loslegen. Was habe ich denn für euch vorbereitet? Und zwar, erstmal natürlich habe ich versucht, die beiden großen Begriffe in Zusammenhang zu bringen zum Thema Game Art. Dann kümmern wir uns um Visual Storytelling selbst, sprich eine Begriffsdefinition, dann die Abgrenzung zu anderen Techniken und Medien und dann schauen wir uns die Komponenten des Visual Storytellings näher an. Dann gibt es noch das Environmental Storytelling und letztendlich auch noch Textures und Storytelling. Ich habe das Ganze tatsächlich so für euch vorbereitet, dass wir sagen, wir gehen mit einer Lupe an das Thema ran. Das wäre Visual Storytelling. Dann gönnen wir uns ein weiteres Vergrößerungsglas für das Environmental Storytelling. Und dann landen wir tatsächlich bei den Geschichten für Texturen. Okay, gut. Dann vielleicht erstmal zu dem Begriff, ne? Was ist Visual Storytelling und wie kann man den Game Artist dazu in Beziehung setzen? Game Art, ja, insgesamt, wir beschäftigen uns natürlich als Game Artist damit, Grafiken zu erstellen. Ne? Diese Grafiken, ne, die sollen dabei helfen, dass ein Spieler tatsächlich Inhalte als plausibel empfindet, sie vielleicht auch als ästhetisch empfindet. In unserer kleinen Werkzeugkiste haben wir dafür natürlich Technisches, aber auch Künstlerisches. Im künstlerischen Bereich vor allem Gestaltungsprinzipien. Formsprache, Farbsprache, Komposition, auch die allgemeine Stilistik spielt dabei tatsächlich mit ein. Gut, dann ist natürlich die Frage, welches Ziel verfolgen wir dabei? Wir wollen natürlich klar, dass die Immersion des Spielers gesteigert wird, aber wir wollen natürlich auch, dass letztendlich der Betrachter die ein oder andere Grafik vielleicht auch als ansprechend empfindet. Aber ich behaupte, ein Game Artist kann noch mehr. Er kann nämlich auch den Spieler mit auf eine Reise nehmen und diese Reise kann genau das Visual Storytelling sein. Der Begriff Visual Storytelling ist sehr groß gefasst. Ich will ihn erstmal schlicht übersetzen und sagen, wir kümmern uns um Umgebungserzählungen. Sprich, wie eine Umgebung dazu beiträgt, die generelle Spielgeschichte zu unterstützen. Wenn wir uns sonst den Begriff anschauen, dann müssen wir versuchen, den Bereich Game Art oder vielleicht auch Computer- und Videospiele insgesamt als Medium von anderen Medien tatsächlich abzuheben. Wir nehmen uns da zum Beispiel den Filmbereich. Was unterscheidet Computer- und Videospiele gegenüber dem Filmbereich? Klar, wir haben virtuelle Kameras, wir haben navigierbare Räume, aber auch Interaktivität. Ne? Der Spieler kann aktiv bestimmen, was er sehen möchte, Zwischensequenzen und Dialoge und noch vieles mehr. Im klassischen Sinne ist der Visual Storytelling-Begriff aber verhaftet, vor allem in klassischeren Medien, wie zum Beispiel in Theaterstücken oder auch Filmen. Da gibt es einen wesentlichen großen Begriff beim Visual Storytelling, der interessant ist, gerade für alles Visuelle, und das ist mise en scène. Das ist ein französischer Begriff. Und da geht es vor allem darum, wie so ein Bühnenbild, ein Schaubild aufgebaut ist. Und ihr seht hier schon in der Abbildung, ne, das ist ein Foto vom klassischen Theaterstück. Da gibt es eine Bühne, da gibt es Charaktere, die haben vielleicht ein bestimmtes Make-up, sagen wir, ein bestimmtes Hairstyling. Das sind dann vielleicht irgendwelche Assets oder Props, die das Ganze unterstützen in der Szenerie. Es gibt Deko, es gibt eine schöne Beleuchtung und so weiter. All das sind Komponenten des Visual Storytellings. Und jetzt geht es darum, das Ganze einmal für den Game Art-Bereich zu übersetzen. Zum Beispiel durch Requisiten. Ich habe hier ein Beispiel dabei aus Fallout 4, ne, das ist der Pit-Boy. Und klar, so ein Pit-Boy gibt uns schon Aufschluss darüber, wo wir uns befinden, in welchem Szenario und auch in welchem Zeitraum der Handlung vielleicht. Ne? Es ist irgendwie eine Zukunftstechnologie. Außerdem gibt uns die Requisite darüber Aufschluss, wer wir sind vielleicht, der spielbare Charakter oder vielleicht auch die generelle Handlung. Des Weiteren gibt es als Komponente das Setting. Ne? Das soll uns Aufschluss darüber geben, wo findet das Ganze statt und auch in welchem Zeitraum. Und wenn wir schon in so einem Szenario sind, welche Verhaltensweisen können wir von den Charakteren eigentlich erwarten? Dann der generelle Schauplatz, ne? Praktisch noch mal ein bisschen kleiner gedacht. Das ist dann der physische Raum, ne? Es muss kein Interieur sein, kann auch ein Exterieur sein, in dem sich dann die Handlung abspielt. Und dort hat ja der einzelne Charakter vielleicht auch wieder einen bestimmten Gemütszustand. Vielleicht ist die Situation, wie hier in The Last of Us, sogar gefährlich, ne? Und wir bekommen vielleicht sogar noch weitere Informationen zur Handlung. Des Weiteren haben wir natürlich Beleuchtung. Und ja, Licht ist nun mal großartig, kann so vieles sein. Wir können zum Beispiel damit richtige Player Guidance betreiben. Wir können den Blick des Betrachters lenken, vielleicht sogar dorthin lenken, wo wir es wollen, bestimmte Fokuspunkte setzen. Wir können eine Stimmung kreieren, eine Atmosphäre, vielleicht auch eine Dramatik verstärken. Wir können auch eine Tiefe erzeugen, ne? Gesprochen für Bildebenen. Wenn wir eine Vordergrund-, Mittelgrund-, Hintergrundebene haben, können wir auch dahingehend den Blick navigieren. Wir können eine Tages- und Jahreszeit vermitteln, auch das geht. Und allein durch Beleuchtung können wir natürlich auch die Persönlichkeit von Charakteren hervorheben. Ne? Gerade auch, welchen Lichtwinkel wir zum Beispiel dabei wählen. Farbe ist natürlich auch wichtig. Und wenn es uns um Farbe geht, klar, Farbe hat je nach Kulturkreis und auch Historie immer eine symbolische oder auch emotionale Bedeutung. Und wir können tatsächlich einer Szenerie auch einen gewissen Ton vorgeben, ne? Die Tonalität gestalten. Wir können mit der Farbe selbst aber auch die Charaktereigenschaften vielleicht nochmal hervorheben von den Figuren, die bei uns auftreten. Oder wir können wir können tatsächlich Verbindungen zwischen zwei unterschiedlichen Dingen herstellen, allein dadurch, dass sie die gleiche Farbe tragen. Farben sind durchaus ein Kommunikationsmittel. Ne? Also klar, sie können erstmal Aktionen signalisieren, nach Motto, hey, es ist rot, es ist zum Beispiel gefährlich. Wir können tatsächlich die Betrachter emotional beeinflussen, auch, ne, klar, psychologisch. Aber was sehr spannend ist, wir können sie auch physiologisch tatsächlich beeinflussen. So, beim Visual Storytelling gibt es ein wunderbares Mittel und das sind kontrastierende Elemente. Hier war ich unterwegs in Hogwarts Legacy, großartig, und bin da gleich erstmal reingegangen in den Ravenclaw-Gemeinschaftsraum. Was hier gemacht wird, es wird tatsächlich mit Druck und ja, so einem Engegefühl gearbeitet. Das heißt, es gibt so einen vorderen Bereich, das ist alles sehr dunkel, eng, und dann gehe ich in diesen großen, offenen Bereich und ach, ich verspüre fast schon Erleichterung, dass ich da reingehe. Ne? Dieses Mittel, das wird tatsächlich sehr gern genommen. Das könnt ihr zum Beispiel auch beobachten bei mittelalterlichen Kathedralen. Ne? Von daher kontrastierende Elemente, die wirken natürlich gut. Es gibt noch weitere Kontraste, die wir bilden können. Zum Beispiel, ne, kühler Raum und dann gehen wir in einen warmen Raum rein. Oder hier ist alles total ordentlich, da ist das Chaos. Oder viele, viele Details, ne, viel Visual Noise, den ich wahrnehme. Und danach ist alles ganz clean und aufgeräumt. Oder auch Symmetrie, na, alles ist sehr symmetrisch. Und dann kommt die große Asymmetrie. Ein weiteres Prinzip wäre Ursache und wirklich. Hier sind wir in einer Szene von The Last of Us und ja, uns begegnet da ein Auto. Und ja, da fängt natürlich schon das Kopfkino an. Wieso ist das Auto da? Ist es vielleicht liegen geblieben? Es sieht irgendwie älter aus. Ist es vielleicht sogar verwittert? Und ach, vielleicht gibt es hier ja auch Zombies, weil ach, der hier aus dem Auto, ne, rausschaut, der sieht schon gar nicht mehr so gesund aus. Von daher ja, es kann tatsächlich auch so leicht dann in die Zukunft deuten und der Betrachter wird dazu angehalten, selber zu kombinieren. Dasselbe hier. In Hogwarts Legacy, dieses zerfallene Bett und irgendwie liegt da drauf auch Heu. Ne? Von daher, da denkt man sich auch, was ist denn da alles passiert? Gut. Was auch sehr gern gemacht wird, ist so gesehen eine Brotkrumenspur zu legen. Das heißt, ne, eine Spur, die der Spieler dann ja aufnehmen soll und der folgen soll. Hier haben wir zum Beispiel den Questlog von Hogwarts Legacy und wir sehen das Quest Das verlorene Kind. Ja, also wir sollen ein verlorenes Kind suchen. Und dann war ich auf dem Weg und da sind mir tatsächlich in der Umgebung dann diese Dinge hier begegnet. Ein Teddy, der liegen gelassen wurde und auch Schriftstücke, die von einem Kind erstellt wurden. Von daher, das ist die Brotkrumenspur, der ich dann folgen sollte. Gut, ich habe hier ein kleines Zitat mitgebracht von Don Carson. Ohne vertraute Bezugspunkte ist der Spieler nicht in der Lage, sich in der Umgebung zu verankern. Er entfernt sich von der Umgebung. Es ist immer sehr wichtig, tatsächlich dem Betrachter visuelle Ankerpunkte zu geben, damit er das, was er sieht, vielleicht sogar mit seinem Erfahrungsschatz verbinden kann. Von daher versuchen wir natürlich, Vertrautes einzusetzen. Nehmen wir hier zum Beispiel den Supermarkt bei Fallout 4. Wir kennen alle Supermärkte, da waren wir schon mal drin. Und jetzt ist dieser Supermarkt einfach in dieses postapokalyptische Szenario transferiert worden. Das heißt, das hilft natürlich dem Betrachter dabei, Inhalte zu interpretieren. Es wird immersiver für ihn natürlich, weil er das kennt aus dem wirklichen Leben. Und gerade weil wir das nutzen, etwas, das er kennt, können wir es auch gleich dazu nutzen, neue Dinge zu etablieren. Es lässt sich dadurch leichter transportieren. Gut, dann gibt es noch den sogenannten Montageeffekt, hier dargestellt bei der Intro-Sequenz von Fallout 4. Und da können wir tatsächlich Geschichten erzählen, dadurch, dass wir sequenziell versuchen, einfach Bilder schnell hintereinander abzuspielen und der Spieler sich eigentlich selber die Geschichte dann dabei denkt. Gut, Telegraphing, auch ein sehr schönes und interessantes Mittel, denn wir enthüllen einfach schon, was als nächstes passieren wird dem Spieler. Und es ist ein Warnsignal. Er denkt sich so, alles klar, demnächst wird es eine Gefahr geben, ich muss mich vorbereiten, ich muss vielleicht meine Zaubertränke herausholen oder ähnliches leisten, damit ich den nächsten Kampf gut überstehen kann. Hier zum Beispiel in Hogwarts Legacy gab es dann hier bei dem verbotenen Wald dann direkt auch so einen riesigen Käfig, der sah schon mal sehr gruselig aus. Und dann ging ich noch weiter und dann waren da Skelettschädel aufgehängt und dann wusste ich, alles klar, da wartet wohl der nächste Waldtroll auf mich. Von daher, das ist wirklich gut gemachtes Telegraphing. Ebenso hier zu sehen, wieder im verbotenen Wald. Das sind solche, ich sag mal, eingesponnenen Wesen, überall Spinnenweben. Und dann am Ende wartet dann vielleicht auch schon, die Spinne auf mich. Gut. Man kann tatsächlich Visual Storytelling auch sehen als das Echo der Welt als Ganzes. Was soll das denn heißen? Man versucht tatsächlich, so viele Spieleelemente wie möglich auszurichten auf das Thema des Spiels, dass das schon mal deutlich wird. Und dann versuchen wir auch alle Spieldesign-Elemente genau auf die Geschichte, dieses erzählerische Stil auch auszulegen. Alles soll passend sein. Und die erzählerischen Momente, die wir kreieren, auf verschiedene Weise, mit der Hauptstory, mit Umgebungserzählung, die sollen tatsächlich dann auch passen zur Prämisse des Spiels. Das heißt, alles, was wir erstellen, soll möglichst die Themen der Welt widerspiegeln. Und das sorgt dann dafür, dass man so eine sogenannte positive narrative Feedback-Schleife erstellt. Motto, es gibt die Hauptgeschichte, aber alles geht immer wieder vor und zurück, alles verweist gegenseitig aufeinander. Genau. Fallout 4 ist da immer ein herrliches Beispiel und bei solchen Begegnungen fängt dann natürlich auch schon das persönliche Kopfkino an. Wo wir auch schon beim nächsten Begriff wären, dem Environmental Storytelling als Unterkategorie des Visual Storytellings. Also, wir haben das Vergrößerungsglas angelegt und schauen etwas näher ran. Zum Environmental Storytelling können ganz verschiedene Dinge zählen. Das kann ein Poster sein, das ich finde, ein Buch, das rumliegt, irgendwelche Texte, irgendwelche statischen Objekte, ein Lagerfeuer, das verlassen ist. Alles, was mir selbst eine kleine Geschichte erzählen könnte. Wenn wir versuchen, das zu verorten, haben wir praktisch einmal die geskriptete Geschichte. Das ist das, was so die generelle Story des Spiels ausmacht. Dann haben wir eine Geschichte, die rein durch das Gameplay erzeugt wird, auch durch das Voranschreiten des Spielers. Aber dazwischen, da liegt das Environmental Storytelling. Das ist der Spieler, was das ist, was der Spieler selbst aus der Welt ableitet. Das ist irgendwie auch das, was er durch Detektivarbeit, durch Nachforschungen schafft, dass er ja, sich einfach selbst auch vorstellt und interpretiert. Gut, von daher, das Environmental Storytelling kann uns dann zeigen, was ist hier eigentlich passiert? Wer bewohnt diese Welt? Was könnte als nächstes passieren? Aber klar, wenn wir uns hier The Last of Us anschauen und da auch so die anfänglichen Level, dann ist es wirklich so, dass wir hier versuchen, erstmal die Stimmung wahrzunehmen und auch vielleicht die Identität des Spielers auszumachen. Ne? In welchem Kontext befindet er sich eigentlich? Und wohin soll der Spieler eigentlich als nächstes gehen? Und da wenden wir natürlich alle künstlerischen Mittel an, die uns zur Verfügung stehen. Zum Beispiel gute Beleuchtung. Environmental Storytelling ist interessant in der Spieleentwicklung. Sie ist erstmal kostengünstig, was super ist, ne? Gerade wenn wir irgendwie an großartige, teure cinematische Inszenierung denken. Sie ist zeitunabhängig, das ist toll, weil es ist spielabhängig. Nur der Spieler bestimmt sein Tempo, in welchem Tempo er das Level erforscht. Und sie ist bedeutungsvoll und einprägsam, weil der Spieler hat selber teilgenommen daran, hat selber etwas für sich interpretiert, selber einen Bezugspunkt kreiert. Und das sind immer ganz wunderbare Erinnerungen, die man dann auch, ja, die sehr einprägsam sind. No, wie hier zum Beispiel in Hogwarts Legacy, wo, diese beiden Herren irgendwie des Ladens verwiesen wurden und der Ladenbesitzer beschwert sich ganz lautstark und wir hören einfach nur zu. Oder hier, wie in The Last of Us, wo wir einfach so einen Schriftzug an der Wand finden und uns denken, okay, wer hat das geschrieben, in welchem Kontext, was bedeutet das eigentlich? Oder was lauert gleich bei der nächsten Ecke? Also von daher, der Interpretation sind dann auch keine Grenzen gesetzt. Gut, der Medienwissenschaftler Henry Jenkins hat mal gesagt, Environmental Storytelling könnte man als Mikrogeschichten interpretieren. Ich widerspreche da und sage, nee, das ist ja nur das erste Vergrößerungsglas, das wir wählen können. Wenn wir weiter rangehen, wie versprochen, dann behaupte ich, die wirklich kleinen Geschichten können sich auf Oberflächenstrukturen abspielen. Das sind die Mikrogeschichten im Kleinen. Texturen. Und wir als Game Artists kreieren diese aus persönlichen Erfahrungen, ne? Unser visuelles Gedächtnis, das, was wir tagtäglich aufnehmen, das ist das eine. Dann, was wir aus dem Leben schöpfen, denn was wir wirklich gesehen haben, das können wir auch plausibel nachbilden, sodass das für den Betrachter auch gut verständlich wird. Und unsere fundierten Erfahrungen, ne? Dadurch können wir auch die Qualität steigern. Nach dem Motto, ich sehe nicht nur ein Bild davon, ich habe das auch vielleicht mal wirklich selber in den Händen gehalten oder gefühlt. Wenn wir uns Oberflächen anschauen und die DNA davon, dann sagen wir, okay, Texturen sind generell so aufgebaut, wir müssen erstmal eine Grundtextur festlegen, vielleicht Metall oder ähnliches. Dann hat das Ganze ein gewisses Alter, vielleicht auch eine Historie erlebt. Ne? Das Material ist vielleicht verwittert oder vom Regen aufgeweicht oder wurde zerkratzt, weil zu viel benutzt wurde. Und dann gibt es noch PBR, Physically Based Rendering. Ich sag mal, alle neue Technik, die wir haben, um dann wirklich die Grafik auch großartig aussehen zu lassen. Wenn wir uns Texturen dann anschauen und uns auch unsere Referenzen suchen, dann kann man von Texturen viel ableiten. Wir können die Geografie ableiten, ne, den Standort, wo existiert dieses Material zum Beispiel, welche Jahreszeit herrscht gerade in dem Szenario. Ist das Objekt alt? Ist es neu? Wie sieht es aus mit der Historie des Ganzen? Was hat das Material schon erlebt? All das können wir dort einfügen. Und vor allem, wir können auch Details hinzufügen. Ihr kennt das bestimmt, Strände sind leider nicht immer sauber. Dort gibt es viel Plastikmüll. Allein, dass wir daran denken und diese Tatsache aufnehmen, dann in unsere Oberflächen, macht das Ganze so viel lebendiger. Ja, und wenn wir dann anfangen, unsere Materialien zu erstellen, dann haben wir verschiedene sogenannte Texture Maps. Wir gehen da tatsächlich durch die verschiedenen Eigenschaften des Materials durch. Angefangen, ne, vielleicht von der grundsätzlichen Farbe, dann der Reflexion, dann den tiefen Details, Verdeckung, Schatten und so weiter. Und auf all diesen einzelnen Texturabschnitten, da können wir dann tatsächlich unterschiedliche Dinge mit erzählen. Zum Beispiel könnten wir auch sagen, Mensch, auf der Reflexionsebene ist ein Fingerabdruck drauf. Von daher, wir haben da wirklich ganz viel Möglichkeit, schon in diesem Kleinen die Geschichten zu erzählen. Und wie gesagt, wenn wir das alles so ausrichten, dass es zum generellen Setting passt, dann fühlt sich der Spieler wirklich in der Immersion willkommen. Okay, Jetzt habe ich noch ein letztes Zitat für euch, weil ich finde, das ist wirklich schön und zeigt irgendwie die Möglichkeiten nochmal auf. Wieder von Don Carson. Take us somewhere we could never go. Let us be someone we could never be. Let us do something. Entschuldigung, let us do things we could never do. Von daher, ja, die Möglichkeiten sind großartig. Okay, gut. Das wäre es erstmal zu meinem schnellen Kurzvortrag. Ich hoffe, ihr seid noch mit dabei. Ansonsten bin ich heute auch noch ein bisschen unterwegs. Falls ihr Lust habt, vielleicht nochmal nach dem Play-Festival-Besuch vielleicht nochmal ein bisschen weiterzuschauen. Ich bin heute beim SAE Campus Hamburg. Wir haben taktoffene Tür. Falls ihr weiter nerden wollt über den Game Art-Bereich, ihr werdet mir super willkommen. Ja, alles klar.
Cool.
Das wäre es von meiner Seite. Vielen Dank für die Aufmerksamkeit.
Ja, vielen Dank, Nele, für deinen Beitrag. Genau, ihr habt es gehört. Wenn ihr noch mehr von Nele sehen und hören wollt, könnt ihr gerne noch im Medienbunker vorbeischauen. Aber ich frage jetzt trotzdem noch mal in die Runde. Also im Twitch-Chat hatten wir gerade keine Frage. Gibt es hier Fragen an Nele? Alle offenen Dinge sind quasi von dir beantwortet worden, habe ich so das Gefühl. Cool.
Das klingt gut. Das ist ein pflegeleichtes Publikum. Ich weiß das sehr zu schätzen.
Ja. Ich kann noch mal schon mal vorab in die andere Richtung noch mal einladen. Kommt gerne. Also ihr hattet ja auch einige Mitarbeitende von der SAE bei uns zu Gast im Makers Corner Bereich und bei den Schulworkshops. Ihr dürft gerne auch noch am Abend bei uns vorbeischauen. Wir haben auf der Bühne dann die Awardshow und bleiben dann auch noch gemeinsam ein bisschen länger. Also ich sag mal noch mal vielen Dank, Nele, für deinen Beitrag. Und vorhin, genau, eine Frage kann man vielleicht jetzt nochmal live kurz beantworten. Im Chat wurde gefragt, kann man sich das später nochmal anschauen? Ja, alle Talks von der Speakers Corner werden zusammengeschnitten und kann man sich dann nochmal...
Ich kann loslegen? Okay, fantastisch. Ich habe das Intro nicht gehört. Sehr gut, dann herzlich willkommen zu unserem kleinen Mini-Talks. Hier werden wir ein bisschen die Ausstellenden aus unserer Ausstellung auf die Bühne bitten. Sie haben dann jeweils 4 bis 5 Minuten Zeit, vielleicht so diese Drehe, um uns ein paar Sachen zu berichten. Wir machen das Ganze auf Englisch, deswegen switche ich jetzt um. And tada, now I'm talking English. Let's see if that's going well. So, first off, we have 4 people, yes, which will tell us something about the exhibition. And for a first guess, actually I didn't tell you guys that from the tech team, but can you show my laptop as well? Is that possible? So the exhibition is quite big this time, and not all of the artists can have a slot at the Speakers Corner, of course, but we still wanted to swipe through everything a little bit. And there we go, perfect. So as you can see, lots of people, and if you can't hear them now in the next 30 minutes, you should definitely check them out, see all the games, find them maybe in the Play Valley, and talk to them there. So, and this is just a quick tip, right on top here, it says when the artists are in the exhibition. So, and today, that's from 7 to 8 p.m., you can talk to Ishtar Games, that's Bruno from Lakeburg Legacy, and ask him all you want as well. Okay. So that's it for a short introduction. I will time with my mobile phone exactly 5 minutes. And our first guest for today is Jan from the game Ultimate Godspeed, which is a very interesting racing game. And Jan, you will be here up on stage in a couple of seconds. There you are. Hello, hello.
Oh, hello, my face is big.
Perfect. So you're ready for your 5 minutes?
Yeah, probably you want to show my presentation and not my face?
Yeah.
On the screen?
That's probably a good thing. There you
Yeah,
are.
thank you.
Now we have a presentation. Okay. So on your go, I press this button and then you're on for 5 minutes. Ready?
Okay, Go.
Go.
Hello. Thanks for having me, and I will talk a little bit about our game Ultimate Godspeed, and we'll dig a bit into some game design problems that we faced. But first off, I will tell you a little bit about the game, and basically I can talk about the game or explain it a little bit like this. So in the beginning, there were only racetracks, but then the gods arrived and changed everything. And if you know the game Ultimate Chicken Horse, then maybe it rings some bells, because the name is a homage as well to the game that we really liked a lot, Ultimate Chicken Horse. And basically we tried to combine this game loop from Ultimate Chicken Horse with a 3D jump and run kart racing game like Mario Kart. And I will first explain a little bit about the game loop, or about our game, and then talk a little bit about some challenges we faced when we translated some game mechanics. So the game basically consists of 3 stages, and in the first stage, all the players get to choose from an assortment of items or traps, and they can then place these traps and shortcuts on the track, and everybody together modifies the racetrack, and you can build new routes or build really devious traps where other players get killed. And in the third stage, then everybody together races on the track that they've just modified. And the funny thing is that this cycle of picking items, placing items, and racing repeats. And each round, new items gets placed on the items that have been placed before, and you get points for winning, or if someone dies, and stuff like this. And probably if you know the game Ultimate Chicken Horse, this rings some bells, because they are doing pretty much the same thing, but in 2D, and it's like a jump and run game where you're this really cute animals, and it's like really funky because you can combine a lot of things together, and you basically keep building the level and make it more and more impossible to reach the goal. And it's really fun because it combines this creative element with the game mechanic. And so for us, when we had the idea to like bring this in the third dimension, we had to face like a lot of things that we didn't think of in the start that are really more difficult to teach the player when it's in the third dimension, because in 2D it's like really what you see is what you get, and you pick items and you place them, and you know, oh yeah, I can jump there and stuff like this. But for our game, when it's like 3D, it's a lot more difficult, because you also need to consider the height, or if you can jump, for example, on this platform. And like we worked a lot to like try to get this level editing or this modification mechanic, make it as approachable as possible for like a party or like a casual multiplayer audience. And basically I will talk about 3 things that we implemented to try to aid the players to understand the level a bit more. And on the first, these are these player trails. I don't know if you see these shiny lines on the track. So you basically see where the players raced, or where they were, what path they took in the last race. And so this gives a bit of understanding of the 3D geometry, and you see who took what shortcut, and you can plan a bit ahead where you want to place the traps or the items. Then there is this grid that you can see, and this is basically an indicator from where you can jump on the platform, and it's really helpful too. And then also we have like an indication if something is on the ground or in the air, and how much in the air it is, like 0, 3 levels up. And yeah, all these things help, or try to help the player to understand the 3D level. So yeah, thank you. That was already 4 minutes, and yeah, I hope I could give something to you.
Jan, where are you calling from in?
Oh yeah, sorry, I just had to start really quick. That was so fun. Yeah, I sadly couldn't make it to Hamburg because I'm in Switzerland, and it was a bit of a big journey to undertake. So yeah, I'm glad that I can stream from here. Yeah, and it's rainy outside here. I don't know about you.
Oh no, I don't know if it's raining actually. We can't see that from here, but it's yeah, it's good weather inside here, so all good feelings and stuff.
That's nice.
Yeah, so quick explanation. Your game was chosen by young play people, so that's a lot of young people who selected their works. And they had so much fun with it, and you will see later on in the photos and videos. Your station is always full, and when you're here on location, you have to check it out as well.
That's cool.
Yes. So can we see you next time,
Is
maybe?
there a place where I can see videos and photos?
Oh, yes. We will share them all around, and you can follow us on all the social media stuff. And I think in the Discord I posted this morning the link to the Flickr with some photos already.
Cool.
Okay, goodbye,
So,
Jan. We have to hurry up to the next persons. So, and bye-bye. Next up on stage, we have Annika from Osmotic Studios. And I have a microphone for you as well here. There we go. That's the 4, I think. And it will work in a couple of seconds, probably. So, and we can also go back to our monitor here. So, you're from Hamburg?
Yes, I'm from Hamburg.
Nice, very good. So, and you brought with you a very new game you have. So, tell us about this one.
Yeah, it's so new that it's not even out yet. It's going to come out next year, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the game is called Closer the Distance, and it's a slice-of-life simulation, meaning that it combines elements from classical simulation games, such as The Sims, with a narrative and a story behind it, in short.
And it very much looks like The Sims. So we will have a quick look at the trailer, I think. And, just mute it down a little bit. Yeah, okay, like this. Tell us a bit about the art style, maybe, because this is just amazing and very different from the work you did before.
Yeah, we decided on a non-hyper-realistic, photorealistic style for this, so we're working a bit abstract. But yeah, we think it nonetheless, or even more, conveys the emotions and the topics that we have in the game. So we hope you like it too.
What is about the help community part? How difficult is it to actually interact with all those characters in the game?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult. We aim to make it a bit like in real life, where you're also struggling to keep relationships well with everybody you know. So in this village, there are living a lot of people. And yeah, as the player, you try to maintain and strengthen the relationships between them, but sometimes you also have to decide which characters you give more of your attention and which you don't. So yeah, much like in real life, it's not always easy.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen before, I think if I can jump back a little bit at the space, all those characters, they have a lot of needs. Where is it? It was in the trailer somewhere.
I think you can't actually see it in the trailer.
I can't see it in the trailer. Oh, damn. Okay, but they have lots of needs. And for me, in The Sims, when I have all those characters, I'm struggling a lot to meet all those needs. Is it like narrative-wise important that you actually can't do that because they follow specific paths?
Yes, exactly. The characters have different needs, so unlike The Sims, where all characters have the same needs, we have differences between them to show their personalities. And because our game takes place after a tragedy happened, those needs are sometimes very hard to meet because the characters are grieving. So sometimes when you have a need for fun, it's not possible to keep it up all the time because you're grieving, you're sad because your sister, daughter, friend, whatever died or has just died. But the needs also fluctuate during the game to show the progress of grief and that it can get better, maybe also worse. I don't want to spoil it too much. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely intended that it's hard to keep them up, even probably sometimes harder than with The Sims, because to reflect the hardship that comes with grief.
Nice. And What I also like, your previous games were very political, and this one feels, at first glance, not this political, but also very deep. And also, it's not in 2D, it's in 3D. So maybe you can tell us a bit about your next path, how you tackled this shift in the style of games you make, and how far along everything is.
Yeah, it was actually, of course, a bit hard to shift from a simple 2D game, simple 2D game, which was taking place in a UI interface most of the time, so to now, where we have a 3D world, where characters are running and walking and sometimes getting stuck. So, of course, our artists had to really dive into the whole 3D thing, and we gained some more artists and people who have experience with that. So yeah, it was a development that we had to undergo. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Oh, just how far along you are in the game, and maybe when we can expect to play the full thing.
We're aiming to release the game in the first half of next year, so 2024. I would say we're at around 70-75%, so now the main focus for us is bug fixing and polishing and getting the game ready for next year.
Nice. Well, that sounds very lovely. I'm very much looking forward to it. Do you have anything else to say to the audience?
Please play our game, try it out, it's cool. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. Well then, thank you. I'll take this. Very nice. And next up, if I can leave the full screen, we have Anka from Symmetry Break. Yes, welcome on stage. Yes, so it should be on. Or was it switched on? No, it should be on.
Okay, well, hello guys.
There we go.
My name is Anka. I'm a co-founder and producer at Symmetry Break Studio here from Hamburg. And I want to talk to you guys today about our first title, Misgiven.
Should I run it?
Yeah, you can play it. There's no speech on the trailer, so it can just run in the background. So, Misgiven is a 2D sci-fi adventure game about the lump in your throat and how hard it is to say some things. And yeah, this always makes it like a good excuse when I start presenting somewhere, because I can justify that I'm nervous about presenting, and I can reference that feeling that you have starting out to how our game mechanics are designed. So with Misgiven, we really wanted to show how some options in a narrative game have different tension behind them. They're not all the same. They're not equal in how much emotion stands behind them. So that's why we made them different sizes. And your character also has different openness towards different people that she encounters across the game. So this affects which vulnerable thoughts she has can she actually share, and with whom. And the story is that you're a space explorer who crashes in a city of toxic fog and breathing masks, which creates an opportunity, but also a very difficult scenario. So here, you will find a mask that saves your life, but you will also have to pretend to be the person who is the owner of the mask originally. And the question is, how far can you go pretending to be this other person? And at which point do you decide to be yourself or somebody else than you were this far? And the challenges along the game are to figure out which people you can actually trust to share more of yourself with, which people you actually have to hold back and say, okay, these things I can never share with them. And there's also an element of unpredictability. So you might choose to share something that is vulnerable, that requires a bit of squeezing to put out of your mouth. This is reflected also in the size of the option. And you have to kind of try to predict if the other person might be ready to receive this truth from you, or if it's going to backfire and might lead to misunderstandings or conflict and so on. So yeah, it's a game about developing relationships and also saving the city, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing. The game also has a nice spot in the exhibition because it's from Hamburg, so it's like in the corner of the Hamburg Works, but it's also connected to soap opera, of course, because of this communication aspect.
Yeah.
How long did you tinker around this mechanic of having this big thing in your throat and it's harder to say something because it looks mechanically super nice and it's also part of the logo, so it's really a core component of the game, but how did you figure that out?
Oh, it's actually been quite a long process because like I met part of what is now the current team in the Games Master at HAV in 2018, so we first made an iteration there of the game, and we had a totally different system back then where it was more about like you had a frame and you dragged the entire dialogue option in there. So it was still based on the size, but it looked totally different and it wasn't so fleshed out and nice. And we took a break for a while, then we got back together again, and then we got funding from Game City, and so it was a long process, and we're happy that we have a much more crystallized version now. Yeah.
Nice. And I also heard you were just nominated, right?
Yeah, we got nominated for the Ubisoft Newcomer Awards.
And another one.
Another one?
Another nomination, right?
No, that's the only one I'm aware of, but thank you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if there's something I don't know about yet, sure. But I think that's the only one.
Oh, well, then I will tell you afterwards, because I'm not sure anymore.
Okay, okay. But I mean, we're pretty excited about this one as it is, so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, what's the next step? When will you release?
So, yeah, we don't have a release date because we are not sure yet when a publisher is going to appear on the horizon, which we're looking for right now. We would hope to release in 2025.
Nice.
But watch our Steam page.
Okay. Well, and until then, play it here or go into Play Valley.
Yeah, please, and give us a wish list while you're at it, because they really help with showing the hype for the game. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. That's your 5 minutes. It was amazing to hear from you.
Thank you for the interview.
Sure. Okay, and next up we have Tobias from Fox Assembly here. Long-time guest at Play, right?
Hi. Yeah, that's
so
true.
So your story is quite interesting because you also won the award in 2020.
Yes.
Twice, actually.
Twice, yes.
Yeah,
so
best,
it was the Most Innovative Newcomer Award and the Audience Award. And that is really, really cool to be here again at the Play23.
Very nice. So your presentation is set.
Yes.
It's there. You can push forward, backward. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so I'm presenting the game Marble Maze. Marble Maze is a really cool and entertaining game about... Marble Maze is a cool game about working together and and playing a fast-paced game on a 3x3 video wall to with alternative game controllers between the monitors. And the interesting about it is that people of every age, so children, elderly people, normal people, people every ages, they can play it together, and it makes really fun of it. So first I'm going to introduce Marble Maze a bit more. Some sentence about me. My name is Tobias. I'm a software developer, and I just founded last year my company Fox Assembly with the game Marble Maze. Marble Maze is a quite interesting game because it combines digital, the digital game with the mounted physical parts of the game. So as you can see in the pictures, there are several parts of it. You can press buttons, you can switch cables, you can switch levers and so on. And they're open and short runs, so everybody can leave the game, but can also join the game. And the game usually takes around 5 minutes. And it's a huge size, so it's a 2-meter video wall with 3 monitors. So it does really a lot of fun. If you haven't played it, come to the Play Festival and play it. And Marble Maze is not only exhibited at the Play23 in Hamburg, it was also in several event locations, like at the Gamescom in Cologne, but also in Linz at the Ars Electronica Festival, in Berlin, in Hamburg again, then in the Netherlands at 4 cities over the last 2 years. And it is a really cool game for events, every kind. And if you wanted to have it at your own event, you can actually rent it. Just leave me a message or anything else, and you can play it at a Play Festival. All right, here's like a kind of overview about the last events. Like it began in 2020. I won, as being said, like the 2 awards at the Play. Then I has been at the Amaze Syndicate in the Netherlands, Overkill Festival. Then there was an exhibition in Dresden, the Gamescom this year, and you can see at the events this year that there are several events. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can drop me a message or come to the Play Festival.
Thanks. Very cool, very cool. Yes, I can take this one. Okay, that was it for a short overview. I hope it was fun to dive into those little stories our developers and artists have here on location. And we're now continuing and giving back to Heiko with a story about wrestling, I think. So stay tuned and see you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, welcome back to the Speaker's Corner. Now I switched again to English because the next talk will be held in English. So, but I lost my smart paper and my dumb phone is out of battery, so sorry for that. But in my mind is something like, or in my memory, Pascal Wagner is the name of the next speaker, and you do something with pro wrestling and soap opera. So it's a big drama that I've lost my notices. Yeah.
But that's true. So.
Yeah. Okay. So. Very warm welcome to the audience here at Jupiter in Hamburg and in the Twitch channel. Thanks again for Nina to hosting us. And yeah, the stage is yours, Pascal. I'm very excited to hear and see your talk.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. My name is Pascal Wagner. Like you just heard, I'm a linguist, a games journalist, and a game studies researcher. And just for tonight, I'm gonna be your guide into the magical world of pro wrestling, which is kind of like a soap, which is the whole point of this presentation. So I hope you are going to have a little bit of fun because I kept it on the lighter note. We're gonna get a lot of pictures. I'm not sure if anybody knows what pro wrestling actually is. So if you're not a fan of some pro wrestling federation or a TV station or whatever, you might think that it is some kind of fighting sport like boxing or whatever. But I'm going to refer to our biggest friend, Wikipedia, and quote the first sentence from the English Wikipedia page, which clears up everything nicely. I'd say professional wrestling is a form of theater that revolves around mock combat performed in a squared ring. I'm not sure if the squared ring is especially important for wrestling, but the rest is perfectly great as an explanation. Um, I'm not going to talk about a very violent sport today, but I'm going to talk about a special form of theater, in a way. And there's not only the fighting that most people might associate with something that's called wrestling, but we do have a lot of acting. For example, people screaming at each other in the ring. That scream out or talk out storylines that do so-called promotions, where they're in the ring promoting themselves or their plot device or their tag team or whatever. And the fights in itself are just as much only devices in storylines as these discussions are. And just as you would expect from theater, everything is very overacted, everything is very enunciated and pronounced to get the people, especially the people in the live audience, into the action. So we have something like these low blows, very exaggerated facial expressions and moves. So even the people in the last in the back of the hall can really see what's going on. And in a way, you need to think of these pro wrestlers not as fighters, but as theater people and, very important, stunts people. Because even though the fights are staged, what they do is obviously still involving violence and strain on the body, so they have to train. They have to train a lot. One of the things you see whenever you start any media associated with the WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment, is don't try this at home, at school, or anywhere. And you should listen to that. But the thing is, these wrestlers are not fighting against each other, but they are working with each other to get through the performance to the audience. And if you've ever seen these elaborate storylines, or maybe not, there are storylines spanning months, sometimes years, for these people that are in rivalry, in conflict with each other, or whatever. And the results and the storylines are fixed. The wrestlers know who has to win and who has to lose, for example. Some pivotal moments that really get the audience going are also fixed, but a lot of the flow in the fight is decided in the moment together. If you watch a wrestling match and you look really closely, you can sometimes see them move their lips, see them talk to each other and communicate. So the whole thing is a very cooperative effort, which most people just don't know about wrestling. So I just mentioned WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, which is kind of important in the context of this talk, so I'm just briefly explaining this. It's the largest wrestling federation in the world. It's one of the largest sports entertainment companies in the world. That's how they themselves call wrestling. It's not a sport or a fight or whatever. It's sports entertainment. They recently merged with the UFC, so in a way they now have actual fighting on board, but not in the wrestling part of the company. They are doing, I think, 3 weekly shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, which are live shows in front of a big audience and also broadcast weekly. They also have monthly pay-per-views, or I think they call it premium live events now, which are the big stages where big plot points happen, as well as the one big event of the year, WrestleMania, which is a name you've probably heard before, even if you don't listen or watch wrestling. They are owned and partially led still by this cabbage of a person, which you mostly know from certain memes, Vince McMahon, who is just a very nice person all around. His attorneys would assure you, probably. And they also, a few centuries, no, sorry, 1990, in the 1990s, they were almost sued by the WWF in Switzerland over the name. So today they're called World Wrestling Entertainment. In the past, they were called World Wrestling Federation, and they had to give up that name, which gives me kind of great pleasure that they had to bow down before the one and only Panda. So, to the topic of the talk. Why is wrestling a soap? I already talked about the acting. It's more theater than it is sports. And the whole big thing in that acting is the overacting, which has practical reasons. You have to convey all the stuff that's happening on the stage in the squared ring to all corners of the live hall, obviously. Also to the people at home watching it on camera. So we have a lot of overacting. We also, as you can clearly see from the miss here on the picture, we have all the plot devices that you would expect from TV series in general and from soaps as well. We have comedic reliefs, as he is. He has a overarching and always recurring plot line about everyone telling him that he has small balls and he has to constantly talk against that. He's a really good actor, that one. We have drama in any kind of form. We have rivalries. We have betrayals in teams. There are tag teams, several people going together and working towards a common goal and fighting. Then not one on one, but 2-on-2, for example, is a really important plot device in wrestling. And then, of course, if you have teams, you have betrayals. Or alliances between teams, even. So a lot of interpersonal drama is what makes wrestling actually exciting. You have incredibly funny meta layers upon meta layers. You have product placement. It's incredibly funny if steeled, hardened fighters with their personas fight in a ring in front of big cinnamon toast crunch advertisements, for example. The whole thing is often styled as a broadcast within a broadcast with replays of special moments that are fixed. So there are commentators also that know when to replay and what to say. Again, incredible if it's combined with the product placement. You have crossovers with other brands. At Royal Rumble this year, a very big event where 30 people fight in one ring. There was a Street Fighter 6 crossover regarding the launch of the game in that same month. And talking about meta layers, you have a whole talk show industry inside and around the wrestling. There is a weekly talk show contextualizing the storylines and bringing more spice and context to the people that can't watch all the shows. You have that in several layers of complexity, one for everything that's happened and one for each show if you just want to concentrate on one show. The same goes with podcasts. You have talk shows in the ring where wrestlers interview other wrestlers, furthering their storylines, most often getting rivalries going, because most of these talk show hosts in the rings are kind of assholes and are the so-called the heels, the bad people that are supposed to be hated or booed by the audience. And then you have actual reality shows and soaps and cartoons even by and with wrestlers from the WWE on the network, so you never have to leave this WWE space for content if you don't want. So you have layers upon layers of commentary on commentary, on drama, and so on, just without ever leaving the illusion that you are watching these people fight for the stories of their lives. And the whole thing looks and appears something like this. I brought a small video here, and I hope you can also hear the audio. Otherwise, please, technicians, scream at me. So I'm gonna talk over this for a bit. You just heard their finishing moves, their special moves have special names, and they only get used once or twice in pivotal moments. And then you have montages and TV moments like this, where you can see the betrayals and the alliances and characters really struggling.
He doesn't know Jey Uso anything.
Is he going to help him? What is going to happen next?
And here's the man who helped bring Jey Uso back in the first place. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, going after the
They all
Judgment
have
Day,
nicknames.
coming to the aid of Jey Uso.
And then there are the unexpected alliances and helps that just get the audience really going. And just as much as rivalries, these newfound brotherhoods are really big moments for the stories often. So these were just really just the perfect clip to show everything that is in pro wrestling apart from the actual wrestling. It's just the excitement they're trying to convey with interpersonal drama on so many levels. Which kind of also fits for anime, which I found really funny. I'm not going to get a lot into this, but all the storylines, you could just one-on-one put them into animes. You have, apart from these betrayals, you have something like people, wrestlers getting exiled and then coming back. You have arcs like people going on training and tournament arcs, going away for a few months, coming back stronger, and you even have the lovely "this isn't even my final form" meme impersonated into these characters, because for special events like WrestleMania, they are suddenly they are evolving, they are getting their Pokemon evolution to get on another level and suddenly learn new moves and stuff. So all of the stuff about pro wrestling, and the second part of this talk was supposed to be why the games so fundamentally fail about conveying everything that I personally love about pro wrestling, all the things that I tried to convey to you as nice and cool and interpersonal and dramatic and soap-like. And I think the best way to show you why these games don't just don't fit this is, again, to show you a small little 50-second clip about how these games look.
Video gamer who loves to joke around, and you can tell he takes that playful energy with him into the ring. Even when he's going up against tough competition, he's usually smiling and enjoying the opportunity to compete.
It really speaks to how Xavier has always stayed true to himself. He doesn't try to change who he is for the sake of his career. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and the WWE Universe really respects that.
Xavier certainly has endeared himself to fans all over the globe, who maybe see some of themselves in the jovial superstar.
And that brings us to Ludwig Kaiser, a supremely disciplined competitor. Kaiser is so exacting between the ropes, rarely making missteps as he goes about his work of destroying.
And will this be it? Gets his shoulder up before the 2 count.
Getting that shoulder up seemed to be pretty easy.
So what you just saw was the latest installment, WWE 2K23, and I think you saw a few things that you would expect from a video game. You have the buttons. You have certain HUD elements showing you how good you were. You have weird little glitchy moments when the counting only starts when the referee goes down and slaps, so the enemy just gets out of the pin situation when the one count actually started, even though he was lying on the ground for, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds already. In general, these games are fighting games, and they really, really want to convey that they are fighting games, that you need skill to play these games. All the wrestlers, as you can see here, have number values showing you how agile they are, how hard they can punch and kick and whatever. Their boxing classes effectively are highlighted. They have special moves that you can interchange apart from their actual signature moves, the ones with the names, like in the video before. The Scottish one had a signature move that was called Claymore, of course. And even in the modes where you are controlling the action, where you are booking the show, there are certain modes in several modes in the game. In one of them, you are the manager, not the wrestler. And even in those modes, and in none of the modes, you can actually try to build up these theatrical performance. It just doesn't work. You can either fight the fights, and then the person who's best wins. It depends on if you are a good player or if the AI is very strong. You put it on very hard, then it might defeat you, even if it does not fit in the storyline you are playing out in your head, because that's the only place where you can play out these storylines. You can book these matches, but you can not tell the wrestlers, for example, who should win, so that a certain storyline is about to start, a certain rivalry is brewing. And that's in part, I think, part of WWE in general not trying to push people on the fact that all of this is theater and not fighting. Because a lot of the people, at least in the past, when I started watching wrestling in the 2010s, there was even a term for people not knowing that all of this was staged, but the term eludes me, so I can't tell you at the moment. I'm sorry. But they're really trying to have their cake and eat it too. So to get the people that know that this is stage and that love the theatricals, and also the people looking for a fight and looking for who is gonna get the champion belt next, who is gonna be the champion next. And these games are and have always been kind of more in, this is a fighting game. You are a fighter and you need to win this. And I'm, this is a fighting game. You can't get into a theater performance. You also, as you have seen in the video, you have a fixed camera angle. Nothing is going to change that. There are no zooms on the faces or on the special moves or on the people roaming around the ring trying to do an illegal move or whatever. Last slide, I'm almost done. Thankfully, there are more and more games getting wrestling as a performance or wrestling as a sport or whatever in the gaming space or in the indie space. None of them are effectively doing what I would like them to do, being the theatrical part, but all the other games that are not shackled to a big conglomerate or a big corporation and having their PR in mind, they have so much more freedom. We have in the upper left corner we have WrestleQuest, which just released a few weeks ago, which I'm very excited to try out. We have Wrestling Empire on the upper right, which is made by one person over 15 years or so. In the down left, we have Fire Pro Wrestling, which is basically very old Japanese wrestling game that still gets updates, where you can customize everything from the people to the ring to the weapons they can take into the ring, and certain storyline elements, promo elements. So much more open to playing out your own fantasy. In the bottom right, that's AEW Fight Forever, which is the first AEW game that also released this year. They're also a lot more lighthearted. You can explode gas tanks in the ring if you want. Nobody gets hurt. It's just a lot more comical than the big WWE game allows you to do. So I'm hoping in this trend to see more of this, more fun, more overacting, more acting at all in the game space. And I hope that you, if you like theatricals but not the fighting, now have a different look on pro wrestling as a discipline and maybe give it a try. Here are my sources, nobody cares. And if you want to follow me, you can find me on Blue Sky because Twitter is shit now. And you can also visit my website, Language at Play, where I do game studies and linguistics. So nothing to do with wrestling at all. But that's it from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pascal. Are there any questions here? Any questions in the Twitch chat? Okay, so there are no open questions. I think you had a really nice talk. It remembers me of my last summer. Last summer I went to the attic at my parents' house, and there I found the action figure of the Ultimate Warrior. So.
Oh, yes. I think he's also in WrestleQuest. They bought some individual wrestler licenses. There's Macho Man Randy Savage, and I think Henry the Giant and the Ultimate Warrior as well. So if you are one of the kids that secretly zapped into wrestling in the 90s or whatever and just have certain faces in your mind or certain names, I think this game is really trying to hit on that nostalgia.
That's it. That's also my story, as you imagined. Okay, thank you for that. And as you have shown, you can stay in touch with Pascal. You can just write in the Twitch chat some other questions maybe you are looking at there also. And yeah, thank you once again. And the next talk will be with Stefan Köhler. You can just come to the stage, and thanks, Pascal. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Okay, willkommen zurück. Welcome back to the Speakers Corner. I switch to German again, because the last talk will be held in German. Ja, der letzte Beitrag kommt jetzt von Stefan Köhler heute auf der Speakers Corner. Kommt gerne nochmal auch nach dem Talk, wenn ihr jetzt uns gerade live zuguckt und ihr wohnt in Hamburg oder in der Umgebung, könnt ihr immer noch vorbeikommen. Wir haben nachher hier auch noch die Awardshow live, wir haben gleich noch die Game Jam Präsentation. Man kann auch ganz, ganz viele Spiele hier spielen. Okay, genug der Rede von Let's Play zu Let's Play AI. Ist gar nicht so einfach auszusprechen. Stefan wird uns das gleich besser erklären können und du kannst auch gerne noch ein paar Worte zu dir sagen. Die Bühne gehört dir. Viel Spaß mit Stefan Köhler.
Dankeschön. Jetzt ist das Mikrofon an. Ja, der Titel von Let's Play zu Let's Play AI natürlich. Also hier geht es um KI, Artificial Intelligence wäre die englische Abkürzung. Und wir wollen in den nächsten Minuten uns anschauen, wie könnte vielleicht künstliche Intelligenz dann auch Let's Play als Format dann revolutionieren oder verändern, in eine andere Richtung bringen. Natürlich sind wir alle jetzt erstmal hier, weil wir Spiele mögen, also Play. Und trotzdem gibt es da dieses seltsame Phänomen, dass man jetzt nicht auf die Idee kommt, einfach ein Spiel selbst zu spielen, sondern tatsächlich dann in Let's Play anderen beim Spielen zuzuschauen. Klingt auf den ersten Blick ja immer ein bisschen komisch. Warum spielt man nicht einfach selbst? Wir werden nachher nochmal sehen, was gibt es da für Gründe vielleicht dafür. Und das kann dann so aussehen, ups, falsches Foto oder vielleicht auch nicht. Let's Play ist nicht unbedingt was Neues. Ja, also das finden wir natürlich auch im Fußballstadion, wenn dann tatsächlich Leute zugucken, wenn nicht ich persönlich selber auf dem Platz stehe und Fußball spiele, sondern meine Mannschaft anfeuere und trotzdem voll mit dabei bin, dann ist das ja eigentlich auch eine Art von Let's Play. Natürlich hier jetzt, gerade auch so im Twitch-Chat, kennt man das eher so in digitaler Form heutzutage. Man hat andere Möglichkeiten, auch der Kommunikation. Fans brüllen einfach rein, feuern ihre Mannschaft an. Hier haben wir den Chat, in dem ich irgendwelche Botschaften natürlich noch reinschicken kann. Die Personen dann, die das Ganze spielen, das Let's Play, können darauf reagieren, wenn es Streaming ist. Es gibt natürlich auch Let's Plays, die vorher schon aufgenommen wurden. Da findet die Kommunikation vielleicht ein bisschen asynchron statt, dann über YouTube, über Kommentare und kann dann vielleicht später nochmal irgendwie durch einen Kommentar zurück dann nochmal quasi auch so einen Kanal geben zwischen dem Let's Player und auch den Zuschauern und Zuschauerinnen. Aber das Digitale bringt jetzt erstmal auf den ersten Blick nicht so viel Neues mit und wir wollen in der nächsten Zeit uns jetzt mal anschauen, was gibt es überhaupt für eine Faszination, anderen beim Spielen zuzuschauen. Das hat tatsächlich auch hier Benjamin Strobe gefragt. Ich habe auch immer, sieht man hier diese QR-Codes, ich hoffe, das ist alles nicht zu schnell, aber kann man ja auf Twitch dann mal Pause drücken und später sich das dann ernster anschauen und dann vielleicht nochmal irgendwie sich die Links dann anschauen, also alles an Bildern und auch an Texten, die ich dann hier anführe, ist hier über die QR-Codes, die hoffentlich noch aktuell sind, dann verlinkt und dann könnt ihr in Ruhe nochmal nachschauen. Denn man sollte sich auf jeden Fall diesen Thread auch mal anschauen bei Twitter oder jetzt X von Benjamin, der die Frage gestellt hat, wann schaut ihr lieber Let's Plays, Streams, anstatt ein Spiel selbst zu spielen. Und da kamen ganz viele verschiedene Antworten. Ich habe mal versucht, das so ein bisschen zu kategorisieren und dann auch so ein paar Schwerpunkte und Schlagworte zu finden. Zum einen natürlich Informationen. Ich möchte herausfinden, möchte ich das Spiel überhaupt spielen? Das ist da angegeben. Gerade bei neuen Spielen schaut man sich ein Let's Play an. Lohnt sich das für mich überhaupt? Ist es überhaupt interessant für mich? Es kann auch Inspiration geben. Ich habe vielleicht selbst das Spiel gerade oder spiele es gerade aktuell und stelle fest, oh, das kann man auch machen. Oh, das probiere ich gleich auch mal selbst aus, wenn ich dann spiele. Oder natürlich auch ein ganz wichtiger Punkt, die Unterhaltung. Ja, ich möchte unterhalten werden durch den Let's Player, durch die Kommentare des Let's Player, durch die Aktionen des Let's Player und möchte einfach nicht selber spielen und selber aktiv sein, sondern gemütlich mich zurücklehnen und einfach zuschauen anderen, wie sie dieses Spiel spielen, wie sie bestimmte Situationen meistern und vielleicht auch irgendwelche Überraschungen erleben. Vielleicht auch sogar manchmal Überraschungen, von denen ich schon weiß und dann einfach mal gucken will, wie reagiert jetzt eigentlich mein Lieblings-Let's Player darauf. Dann natürlich eine weitere Kategorie wäre der Vergleich mit anderen. Ich möchte gucken, bin ich besser, bin ich schlechter als die andere Person, habe ich das anders gelöst? Das wäre hier diese Vergleichsschiene. Das dritte wäre tatsächlich die Distanz. Also tatsächlich taucht das auch sehr oft auf in den Kommentaren, dass man sagt, bei bestimmten Genres, gerade Horrorspielen, hatten wir ja vorher auch schon mit dem Gothic-Vortrag von Christina,
Da möchte ich gar nicht selbst spielen, da erschrecke ich mich zu sehr. Da möchte ich lieber anderen Leuten dazu gucken und vielleicht grusel ich mich dann ein bisschen mit, aber ich bin nicht selber irgendwie beteiligt und habe damit ein Problem. Und auf der anderen Seite natürlich, auch wenn es ein bisschen komisch klingt, haben wir die Nähe. Ja? Also, Entschuldigung. Ja? Nein? Nein. Okay, gut, weiter geht's. Aber, also die Nähe bedeutet eben, wir haben eine parasoziale Beziehung und diesen Begriff habe jetzt nicht ich geprägt, sondern tatsächlich dann hier Vera Marie Rodewald, die wir auch hier dann beim Festival haben. Und sie hat einen Artikel geschrieben zum Thema Let's Play im Handbuch Gameskultur und hat eben gesagt, das Besondere an Let's Plays ist, dass wir irgendwann anfangen, eine Beziehung auch herzustellen zu den Let's Playern. Also wir freuen uns mit ihnen, wir finden das vielleicht toll, was die machen, wir finden sie sympathisch, wir finden sie lustig und ohne, dass wir diese Personen kennen, vielleicht auch dadurch, dass sie mal auf unsere Kommentare reagieren, haben wir das Gefühl, das ist wie so ein Freund der Familie, den gucke ich jetzt schon seit Jahren und kriege immer das, was ich dann auch irgendwie will an Unterhaltung. Also einerseits Distanz, andererseits auch Nähe können Motive dafür sein, auch Let's Plays oder Streams sich anzuschauen. Genau, wer da nähere Informationen haben will zu Let's Plays, einfach mal hier auch dem QR-Code folgen und dann könnt ihr den Artikel von Vera Marie Rodewald auch dann lesen zu Let's Plays und Streaming im Handbuch Gameskultur. Und jetzt ist natürlich die Frage, kommen wir zu KI. Wie sieht das mit KI gerade aus? In aller Munde, ChatGPT, man kann irgendwelche Bilder dann generieren lassen mit Midjourney und anderen Programmen. Trotzdem gibt es Personen, die sagen, wir brauchen uns keine Sorgen machen. Da KI einfach die menschliche Kreativität nie komplett übernehmen kann. Und dafür werden jetzt verschiedene Gründe angeführt. Also es lohnt sich auch, den kompletten Artikel zu lesen. Ich habe jetzt noch mal ein paar Punkte rausgeholt. Das kann man kurz zusammenfassen. Wir finden es interessant, Menschen zuzusehen, weil sie nach denselben Regeln spielen wie wir. Also wir haben Regeln, nach denen wir spielen und auch die KI hat Regeln, aber die KI hat natürlich völlig andere Möglichkeiten, kann nach ganz anderen Regeln spielen. Und das ist für uns natürlich komisch, weil wir dann sagen, Moment, das ist nicht so, wie wir spielen. Dadurch haben wir vielleicht auch nicht diese Beziehung zu KI. Ist zumindest die Theorie jetzt hier, die von Alberto Romero dann aufgeführt wird. Und zusammengefasst würde das heißen, KI kann Menschen gar nicht ablösen, weil Menschen einfach Menschen zu sehr mögen. Nehmen wir diesen Satz und fragen uns, bleibt das auch so, wenn KI vielleicht immer besser wird? Oder vielleicht noch weiter. Ist das überhaupt so? Wenn wir daran denken, dass wir zum Beispiel in China schon virtuelle Influencer haben. Das heißt, nicht nur Influencer aus Fleisch und Blut, die irgendwelche Produkte verkaufen, sondern auch Influencer, die durch KI dann wieder natürlich auch sprechen können, vielleicht sogar Kontakt mit ihren Fans haben. Und vielleicht kommt dieser Trend dann auch tatsächlich bei uns in Europa an. Und es sind nicht mehr Menschen, zu denen wir irgendwie eine Beziehung haben, sondern tatsächlich irgendwelche virtuellen Menschen oder vielleicht auch sogar virtuelle Charaktere. Und dann ist die Frage, ist das für uns vielleicht genauso interessant? Und diese Kreativität, die diese virtuellen Menschen und virtuellen Figuren dann ausleben und die Clips, die sie machen, ist für uns das genauso unterhaltsam wie die von Menschen. Wir schauen uns jetzt noch so ein paar Beispiele an, wie sieht das Ganze aus mit KI in Spielen. Da gibt es die ersten Versuche, also es gab natürlich schon generell immer KI in Spielen, wo auch geguckt wurde, wie Figuren sich bewegen und durch Technologien jetzt wie ChatGPT, durch Chatbots gibt es inzwischen auch Möglichkeiten, dass wir auch wirklich mit Figuren in Spielen sprechen können und nicht nur die Sätze bekommen, die die Entwickler schon vorher geschrieben haben, sondern dass wir tatsächlich immer eine individuelle Antwort bekommen auf das, was wir gesagt haben. Das heißt, ich kann hier zum Beispiel ein Schwert aufsammeln und kann dann direkt danach mit einem NPC, also Non-Playable Character, sprechen und kann sagen, was denkst du davon? Und der NPC weiß, ich habe dieses Schwert aufgesammelt und entsprechend kann er natürlich darauf reagieren und kann sagen, das ist ein sehr schönes Schwert, das du da hast. Und plötzlich habe ich eine Interaktion, die viel individueller ist und viel direkter. Und das sind natürlich Möglichkeiten, was man machen kann mit KI. Und sowas könnte natürlich auch in Let's Plays auftauchen, weil ja auch dann Let's Player einfach mal uns vor Augen führen, was kann man eigentlich alles Verrücktes machen. Und das gibt es ja inzwischen schon auch ein paar Videos. Ich habe das jetzt hier mal verlinkt als Technologie-Demo, aber kann man auf YouTube finden, dass Let's Player einfach mal ausprobieren, wie kann man einen Chatbot in so einem Spiel ausreizen, was für Antworten gibt der, kann man denen auch Fragen stellen zu irgendwelchen Themen, die eigentlich überhaupt so eine Figur, so ein mittelalterlicher Wache gar nicht wissen könnte. Also keine Ahnung, kann ich den zu Ergebnissen zur NFL fragen und sowas dann. Sollte die Figur das überhaupt wissen, gibt es dann nur vielleicht Comedy daraus? Und das wird natürlich auch spannend zu sein, wie sich dadurch Let's Plays vielleicht auch verändert werden, weil wir eben auch mit KI dann plötzlich ins Gespräch kommen. Ja, dann erst vor kurzem gefunden, ist ja auch noch nicht so lange draus von Super Mario Bros. Wonder, gibt es dort die sprechenden Blumen. Und jemand hat sich die Mühe gemacht zu sagen, er programmiert die Blumen so, dass das, was die Blumen sagen, was normalerweise immer irgendwelche motivierenden kleinen Sprüche sind, von seiner Community vorgeschlagen wird. Das heißt, wir haben auf der linken Seite den Community-Chat. Dort wird dann gesammelt, was quasi gesagt werden könnte, wird von einem Programm ausgewertet, wird nochmal vielleicht umformuliert und dann der Chatbot gibt es dann wieder über eine Sprach-KI wieder. Das heißt, auch der Let's Player weiß gar nicht, was da auf ihn zukommt und wie die Blumen vielleicht ihn irgendwie beleidigen werden oder vielleicht auch die Blumen irgendwelche Kommentare geben werden, dass sie lieber Luigi gesehen hätten und nicht Mario, wenn er vorbeiläuft. Also auch die Ideen, die wir hier auf der linken Seite dann sehen können. Und jetzt kommen wir eigentlich zu dem Punkt, der mich da auch dazu gebracht hat, überhaupt diesen Vortrag zu halten, weil ich dann vor kurzem was entdeckt habe. Ich weiß nicht, ob das schon so inzwischen jetzt im Mainstream angekommen ist oder einige es schon kennen, aber finde ich eine sehr interessante Entwicklung. Und ich hoffe jetzt mal, das Video funktioniert. Das werde ich jetzt mal abspielen. Alle bereit fürs Video? Okay.
This sound effect doesn't sound good to me. Oh, wait. Ouch, that was a close call. I nearly ripped my outfit.
So, was haben wir gesehen? Lara Croft, kennen vielleicht einige, haben es auch selbst gespielt. Vielleicht waren auch viele jetzt verwundert, dass man über diesen Stein auch springen kann, weil das waren auch sehr viele Kommentare unter diesem Video. Und tatsächlich sehen wir hier erstmal auf der ersten Ebene einen Bot. Das heißt, jemand hat zumindest behauptet, zu dem Punkt kommen wir gleich noch, dass er einen Bot programmiert hat, also ein Computerprogramm, das die Figur Lara Croft steuert durch das Level. Und die KI muss selbst quasi lernen, mit der Umgebung klarzukommen und muss selbst irgendwie nach den Parametern, die ihr gegeben wurden, rausfinden, wo geht es eigentlich zum nächsten Ausgang, wo muss ich hin, was muss ich eigentlich drücken und natürlich, wie muss ich mit solchen Situationen umgehen. Also da rollt irgendwas auf mich zu, wir haben gehört, die hat gesagt, das ist aber ein komisches Geräusch, also das ist ja schon interessant, weil wir plötzlich auf so einer Metaebene sind, die kann auch hören, was für Geräusche das Spiel macht und nicht nur Geräusche, die quasi in der Umgebung vorkommen und kann die auch kommentieren. Und dann natürlich kann sie eben auch drüber springen, weil es für die KI dann die logischste Lösung ist. Da kommt was auf mich zu, ich muss dem Ganzen ausweichen, nach hinten ist vielleicht zu umständlich, ich kann auch einfach drüber springen. Da würden Menschen vielleicht nie drauf kommen, die würden einfach nur umdrehen und so schnell rennen, wie sie können. Und dann am Ende haben wir natürlich nochmal einen Kommentar von der KI, die sagt, ja, zum Glück hat das funktioniert, ich bin gerade noch ausgewichen und ich habe mir nicht meine Klamotten zerrissen. Und da ist das Besondere, dass dann der Entwickler sagt, er hat auch die Persönlichkeit von Lara Croft in die KI gepackt. Das heißt, alles, was man über Lara Croft weiß, dass sie eben in einem großen Villa wohnt, dass sie Archäologin ist, dass sie bestimmte Interessen hat, dass sie bestimmte Dinge mag, bestimmte Dinge nicht mag, sollen beeinflussen, welche Kommentare sie auf das Spielgeschehen dann gibt. Jetzt werden einige vielleicht unter uns dann sagen, Moment, ja, kennen wir eigentlich ja schon, gibt es ja vom Prinzip schon. Zum Beispiel, weiß nicht, ob das jemand kennt, Freeman's Mind. Das war damals so zu Half-Life-Zeiten sehr beliebt, wo jemand dann einfach ein Let's Play gemacht hat von Half-Life und dann drüber gesprochen hat, was denkt sich eigentlich Gordon Freeman, diese stumme Protagonist, die ganze Zeit dabei. Also er fährt dann mit dem Zug da am Anfang, denkt sich, oh, ich komme schon zu spät, dann gibt es irgendwie eine Werbung, dass dann doch alle Leute irgendwie nach Black Mesa kommen, sondern denkt sich, nee, ich kann doch nicht hier jeden reinlassen. Also der kommentiert ständig das Spielgeschehen. Nur das Besondere hier ist natürlich, dass zumindest behauptet wird, dass hier nicht irgendjemand schon diese Sachen geschrieben hat, also ein Autor, und dann nochmal vertont hat, sondern dass eine KI auf die Situation reagiert, als Lara Croft, und dann durch einen Chatbot einen Text verfassen lässt, der auf diese Situation passt und dann wieder über eine Sprach-KI wiedergibt, was Lara Croft wahrscheinlich zu diesem Zeitpunkt dann zu dieser Situation gesagt hätte, in ihrem Charakter, in ihrer Persönlichkeit. Man muss dazu sagen, gleich am Anfang wird schon gesagt, Moment, so einfach ist es nicht. Und auch in dem Video, was ich hier auch verlinkt habe, natürlich ist es heutzutage mit der Technologie noch nicht möglich, das sofort zu machen. Also dass wir Situationen haben und dann kommt sofort der Kommentar. Das heißt, es wird hier ein bisschen getrickst, es wird geschnitten und der Kommentar kommt dann zeitverzögert, aber es wirkt auf uns so, wenn wir das Ganze sehen, als ob Lara Croft dann sofort, nachdem das geschehen ist, gleich den Kommentar danach abgibt. Und hier wird natürlich auch gesagt, es werden ein paar Anpassungen vorgenommen und sie ist natürlich nicht wirklich selbstbewusst, dass sie quasi weiß, sie ist in einem Computerspiel, auch wenn sie manchmal so Kommentare macht, aber die KI und der Chatbot lässt das so wirken. Und natürlich macht er sich auch ein bisschen darüber lustig, dass natürlich hier alles nur virtuell ist, da es gleich, als diese Videos aufkamen, Vorwürfe gab, das ist alles nur Fake. Lustigerweise, und da sind wir wirklich bei so einer Metageschichte, gibt es ein Video, wo auch jemand dann sich die Mühe macht, nach und nach nachzuweisen, warum das Ganze nicht funktionieren kann, rein aus technischer Sicht. Also A, dass überhaupt irgendwie eine KI Tomb Raider spielen könnte, B, dass man das Ganze noch irgendwie hätte, dass die noch reagieren kann mit Sprache auf die Situation und dann auch in der Persönlichkeit von Lara Croft. Das Lustige ist tatsächlich, dass viele Leute gesagt haben, Moment, das sieht so aus, als ob der Typ, der die Videos gemacht hat, zu Self-Aware Lara Croft auch dieses Video gemacht hat, wo er sich selbst zu entzaubern versucht. Also es wäre quasi dann ein Metaspiel nochmal auf einem völlig anderen Level. Und wenn das so wäre, ist das schon fast eigentlich Kunst, dass der erst so ein Kunstwerk schafft und dann selber nochmal kritisiert und das aufnimmt, dass viele Leute gesagt haben, geht doch gar nicht, und sagt, das ist alles Fake. Ja? Für uns ist jetzt, glaube ich, ganz interessant zu fragen, ist das so, dass das Video Fake ist? Kann man jetzt gucken, ob irgendwann es rauskommt, ist vielleicht aber nicht so die spannende Frage, sondern die viel spannendere Frage ist natürlich, ist das überhaupt wichtig? Denn wenn man sich die ganzen Kommentare durchliest unter den Videos, gibt es da unzählige Kommentare, die sagen, ich muss euch alle aufklären, es ist eigentlich nur Fake, das kann gar nicht funktionieren. Und darunter gibt es lauter Leute, die sagen, ist mir völlig egal. Weil ich möchte einfach Lara Croft zusehen. Ich möchte sehen, wie diese KI Dinge völlig anders macht, als ich es vielleicht damals gemacht wegen meinem Playthrough. Ich möchte irgendwie unterhalten werden, weil die auch verdammt witzig sein kann, vielleicht auch manchmal unfreiwillig komisch, weil das gar nicht so zu dem passt, was quasi da gerade passiert ist. Und hier können wir nochmal aufgreifen, was wir vorher hatten. Ja? Wir haben natürlich jetzt vielleicht nicht unbedingt Leute, die Tomb Raider Informationen brauchen, wie ist das Spiel, weil ist ja schon ein bisschen älter. Vielleicht kann man ein bisschen Inspiration noch haben. Hauptsächlich natürlich ist es Unterhaltung für die Leute. Die wollen sehen, wie eine KI hier spielt und wie sie eine KI vielleicht zumindest, wie behauptet wird, zum ersten Mal auf diese Umgebung trifft und dann einfach gucken muss, wie komme ich überhaupt klar und warum flattern plötzlich Fledermäuse auf mich zu? Autsch, die wollen mich irgendwie töten. Oh, jetzt muss ich irgendwie meine Waffen benutzen, muss die umnieten. Und einfach diesen Prozess quasi wahrzunehmen, wie plötzlich irgendwie eine Spielfigur lebendig wird und selber agieren muss in einer Spielwelt, ohne dass der Spieler irgendwas macht. Dann natürlich kann ich mich vergleichen, kann sagen, die KI hat das anders gemacht, zum Beispiel mit dem rollenden Stein, den wir gesehen haben, dass sie einfach drüber gesprungen ist. Ist das überhaupt möglich? Wusste ich gar nicht. Wir haben die Distanz natürlich, dadurch, dass wir sagen, das ist ja eine KI, das ist ja kein Mensch, der das spielt. Und interessanterweise, glaube ich aber, ist es trotzdem auch eine Nähe, weil es viele Leute gibt, die sagen, oh, ich habe mich so drauf gefreut, endlich wieder das neue YouTube-Video zu sehen. Ich schaue das so gerne, das ist einfach so herrlich, wie Lara das macht und ich gucke der so gerne zu. Also obwohl es eine KI ist, gibt es viele Fans, die sagen, ist mir völlig egal, dass es eine KI ist. Ich möchte einfach nur diesem unterhaltsamen Let's Play zugucken. Und jetzt ist natürlich das Spannende, die Frage, ob das jetzt fake ist oder nicht, ist egal, aber vielleicht ist das mit der Technologie, die wir in 1-2 Jahren haben, auf jeden Fall möglich. Vielleicht ist es jetzt schon möglich, aber selbst wenn es jetzt nicht möglich ist und nur ein Fake ist, vielleicht ist es dann später tatsächlich dann möglich. Und dann natürlich ist die Frage, wie sich die KI weiterentwickelt. Vielleicht kann man heutzutage sagen, vielleicht ist es heutzutage auch einfach spannend zu sehen, wie schlecht manchmal die KI auch mit der Situation umgeht und daraus die Komik entsteht. Vielleicht ist manchmal irgendwann die KI zu perfekt und das will ich nicht mehr sehen. Aber es bleibt vielleicht diese spannende Frage, ob dadurch auch so eine neue Form von Let's Play entstehen könnte. Zum Beispiel die Frage, was ist, wenn ich plötzlich Lara Croft nehme und packe die in Minecraft? Die muss plötzlich in Minecraft klarkommen und dann mit ihrer Persönlichkeit gucke ich dieser Figur zu, dieser Heldin, wie sie plötzlich in einer völlig anderen Umgebung, also ich habe jetzt extra nicht Resident Evil als Beispiel genommen, da gibt es ja auch schon Mods, die Lara Croft in Resident Evil reinpacken, aber auch das wäre spannend. Wie würde eine Archäologin in einem Zombie-Shooter quasi umgehen? Welche Kommentare würden kommen? Wie würde die irgendwie reagieren? Wie würde die lernen, was da los ist mit diesen Zombies? Und tatsächlich kurz zu Minecraft, wen das interessiert, gibt es ja tatsächlich schon auch bei Minecraft komplette Bots, die durch Chatbots auch alleine spielen können. Das heißt, man setzt dieses Programm in die Welt und das lernt dann nach und nach auch dieses Spiel zu spielen. Das heißt, wir sind vielleicht tatsächlich gar nicht mehr so weit entfernt davon. Und es bleibt die spannende Frage, wird das auch Let's Plays verändern? Werden wir weiterhin gerne Menschen zugucken? Werden wir gerne KI zugucken? Werden wir vielleicht wie bei den Influencern nach und nach immer mehr KI zugucken? Menschen weniger zugucken, müssen sich Let's Play jetzt irgendwie Sorgen um ihre Arbeitsplätze machen, oder ist es andersrum, dass KI immer noch so ein Sonderfall bleiben wird, der einfach nur dazu führt, dass wir irgendwie sagen, oh, das ist was Neues, was Besonderes. Es bleibt spannend und ich bin gespannt, wie es sich weiterentwickelt. Vielen Dank erstmal für eure Aufmerksamkeit. Falls ihr irgendwie mich gerne erreichen wollt, dann könnt ihr das auf diesem Wege tun. Und jetzt habe ich noch Zeit für Fragen? Ja, ein bisschen.
Genau, hier kommt die Stimme aus dem Off. Ich komme mal hoch zu dir. Vielen Dank, lieber Stefan, für den sehr interessanten Beitrag. Habt ihr Fragen hier im Publikum an Stefan? Ja, bitte. Hier gibt es eine Frage.
Ja, erstmal herzlichen Dank, Stefan. Super interessant. Du hast auch schon viele Punkte aufgemacht und gerade den Punkt der parasozialen Beziehungen ist natürlich eine Sache, die man jetzt untersuchen könnte, theoretisch, oder nochmal überlegen kann, wie sich das dann entwickelt, gerade wie du gesagt hast, weil die Technik sich verändern wird, also inwiefern wird die parasoziale Beziehung sozusagen zu dem Video, wenn man so will, zu dem Ingame-Character und auch ja, zu diesem Kunstwerk sozusagen vielleicht aufgebaut, versus üblicherweise zu vielleicht Streamerinnen, Streamern, Creatorinnen und so weiter, ne, dass man sagt, da ist ja so ja, eine ganze Facettenmöglichkeit irgendwie da. Wie ist da deine Einschätzung?
Ich kann das wirklich ehrlich noch gar nicht sagen, weil es hat mich selbst überrascht dann auch, dass das so viral gegangen ist. Also ich weiß ja nicht, ob irgendjemand das vorher schon kannte, aber gerade so bei YouTube, vielleicht auch, weil ich eher so in der KI-Ecke und Games-Ecke dann sehr aktiv gerade bin, war es wirklich so, dass es sehr viele Views hatte, sehr viele Leute, vielleicht auch natürlich durch diese Kontroverse, ob das jetzt fake oder nicht fake ist, dann sich das angeschaut haben und eben auch ich überrascht war durch diese ganzen Kommentare, die wirklich gesagt haben, das ist mein Highlight immer, eine neue Folge, wenn ich dann Lara zugucken kann, ich kenne eigentlich diese Level schon, ich habe das alles gespielt als Kind, kommt natürlich vielleicht noch ein bisschen Nostalgie mit rein, aber diese Idee allein quasi, dass da plötzlich die Heldin auch lebendig wird und wir quasi ihr zugucken, aber es ist anders ist als in einem Film, wo wir zugucken, wie quasi schon alles vorgeschrieben ist, sondern plötzlich sie selber quasi in dem Raum aktiv ist, sie selber irgendwie klarkommen da muss und daraus eben auch diese Spannung entsteht, was wird passieren, und das ist natürlich jetzt alles noch geschnitten, aber wenn wir natürlich uns vorstellen, dass es wirklich irgendwann mal vielleicht live möglich wäre, dann wäre es ja wirklich vielleicht auch eine völlig andere Spannung, weil ich auch nicht weiß, wie wird sie reagieren, wie wird sie es schaffen, mitfiebere und plötzlich natürlich dann vielleicht noch eine stärkere parasoziale Bindung dann auch aufbauen kann.
Hier gibt es noch eine Frage.
Also erstmal nochmal danke für den Vortrag. Ich kam jetzt leider ein bisschen zu spät, aber ich habe trotzdem das Wichtigste so mitgekriegt, hoffe ich mal für mich. Ich kann mir sehr gut vorstellen, dass das, soll ich noch ein bisschen näher oder?
Ja.
Also ich kann mir sehr gut vorstellen, dass das sehr interessant sein könnte, weil wir auch das schon hatten mit den, sagen wir jetzt Mario Party, auf die Bots wird gewettet, also dieses typische, man hat halt den anderen Spieler, den man nicht kontrolliert und dem guckt man dann zu, wie er was macht. Das kann ich mir sehr gut vorstellen, dass es halt dadurch über KI dann auch nochmal eine Revolution quasi gibt, man sieht das ja jetzt schon in Videospielen, dass es da zu mehr hinbekommt. Und ich finde das mit der parasozialen Ebene, wie du das halt erwähnt hast, auch sehr interessant, da habe ich überhaupt nicht drüber nachgedacht, aber das ergibt Sinn, wenn man das halt auch in diesen Streaming- und Let's Play-Kontext bringt, hat das ja auch Vorteile für die KI, weil die auch nicht so unter diesen parasozialen Bindungen leidet, wie halt auch andere Streamer, die dann über Imposter-Syndrom und sowas dann da irgendwie klarkommen und so Probleme haben. Das hat die KI halt einfach nicht. Deswegen ist es halt in dem Fall sogar ja nicht erstrebenswert, aber auch nicht so negativ belastet, wenn halt Leute zu der KI halt eine parasoziale Bindung aufbauen, weil man hat halt nur eine Seite der negativen Beziehung.
Ja, das ist ein wichtiger Punkt. Also vielleicht, um da noch einen Gedanken unterzubringen, der mir jetzt auch wieder eingefallen ist, weil ich das ja alles freigemacht habe. Also ich glaube tatsächlich, vielleicht müssen sich Let's Player nicht unbedingt um ihren Arbeitsplatz Sorgen machen, aber vielleicht könnte es auch eine andere Form geben von Let's Play, dadurch, dass ich auch einstellen kann, vielleicht was die KI für eine Persönlichkeit die hat. Also ich schicke quasi eine bestimmte Persönlichkeit von KI in dieses Level. Und das könnte vielleicht auch schon meine kreative Leistung sein als Mensch, dass ich sage, wollt ihr mir mal zugucken, wie jetzt, keine Ahnung, Lara Croft mit der Persönlichkeit von Jill Valentine irgendwie, keine Ahnung, zum Beispiel jetzt irgendwie, also jetzt als an Hahn herbeigezogenes Beispiel, irgendwie Tomb Raider spielt. Ja? Also das wären vielleicht auch Möglichkeiten, wo wieder Menschen, weil ich glaube natürlich, wie schon vorher gesagt wurde, Menschen werden nie komplett raus sein aus der Kreativität, weil dafür sind wir einfach zu kreativ und haben zu viel Spaß in Kreativität und schauen eben gerne Leuten zu, die coole Ideen haben oder finden das toll. Aber vielleicht ist das dann so eine Weiterentwicklung dann jetzt von dem, was wir jetzt hier gesehen haben, die wir noch gar nicht so auf dem Schirm haben und es bleibt auf jeden Fall spannend.
Okay, lieber Stefan, ich komme nochmal zu dir hoch. Wir bleiben kreativ ist vielleicht ein ganz gutes Stichwort. Aber vielleicht noch ein Gedanke. Wurde gerade erwähnt, man kam zu spät. Falls ihr auch ein bisschen später eingeschaltet habt, ihr könnt es euch auch nochmal angucken. Und du hattest, finde ich, so einen Varoufakis-Moment mitgebracht eigentlich. Ne? Also wer sich noch daran erinnert, mit dem Varoufakis Stinkefinger, ja, ist es denn jetzt echt oder nicht? Und das hat mich erinnert bei deinem Vortrag zu diesem AI-Video eben mit Tomb Raider. War es jetzt echt oder nicht? Eigentlich total spannend. Also weil das wird ja immer über allem schweben, wenn es darum geht, einen Einsatz von KI. Ne?
Ja, der Punkt ist aber natürlich, ist es überhaupt relevant, wie ich ja schon gesagt habe, weil selbst wenn tatsächlich vielleicht Leute irgendwie wüssten, das ist nicht in Ordnung oder quasi auch alles bearbeitet, so wie es ja auch zugibt, ist es ja trotzdem die Faszination von dem, was rauskommt, dem Produkt.
Das stimmt. Genau. Okay, also es war faszinierend, vielen Dank. Wir hatten viele faszinierende Talks heute. Nochmal einen Applaus für dich, lieber Stefan.
Dankeschön.
Genau, wir sind jetzt für den Moment am Ende der Speakers Corner angelangt. Schön, dass ihr eingeschaltet habt im Twitch und zugeschaut habt, dass ihr lange vielleicht auch zugeguckt habt oder später eingeschaltet habt. Nochmals kurzer Hinweis, ihr könnt alles nochmal im Nachhinein anschauen. Wenn ihr in Hamburg in der Umgebung wohnt, kommt gerne noch rum. Wir sind auch morgen, haben wir noch einen vollen, pickepackevollen Festivaltag. Wir haben heute aber auch noch einiges zu bieten und auch einiges im Stream. Die Bühne hier vor Ort im Jupiter ist voll geworden. Es gibt gleich eine kleine oder auch große Game Jam Präsentation. Dazu gebe ich gleich das Wort ab an Rike, Tom, Suden und Lasse. Wir machen aber trotzdem im Stream auch einen kurzen Break, kurze Pause, weil wir nochmal ein bisschen umbauen werden. Also, stay tuned, bleibt dran und gleich geht's weiter, zwar ohne mich, aber genauso toll und wir sehen ganz, ganz schöne, tolle Spiele, die entstanden sind. Bis gleich. Tschüss.